tears down his face witnessing his father's death, blood that ran cold throughout his body, despair by the fact he was the cause of it, wrath towards the man that changed his life. Izuku sat there next to his lifeless body of a father beaten to oblivion by a man with a scared face that stood in front of him. All for one, the man said. Remember that name, son of Baki Hanma, for in the future we will meet again, but till then grow stronger and earn your title as the strongest creature by killing me. Before Izuku could think, he instinctively used his mother's quirk to stop the man from moving, but no avail. It proved useless because simply he just got his birthright yesterday on his 5th birthday and had little to no time adjusting to his new power. The tall man simply grinned and simply raised his hand and grabbed the young boy by the neck and simply said, "You think that power will do you any good?" After hearing these words, Izuku attempted to use his new quirk to bring a knife to his aid, but he couldn't feel it anymore, the power that he had. At this point, the child, more confused than angry, only to turn to his attention to the man's chuckling at him. "You can live without it, just like your late father," the man said. As he finished his comment, Izuku was still not putting any effort to escape because the shock of the loss of his father and now his own power, and the child just stayed there hanging by the neck from the man's grip. "Why?" is all the young boy said. "Why?" the man replied back. "We live in a world full of unique abilities, and yet no one could best your quirkless dad in any fight, so I just came here to do that. But now knowing you exist, this is becoming more worth while to wait a strong opponent." Izuku felt more anger than earlier just because he wanted to fight his dad, but turned out to be murder session. "You are weak now, so I will let your rage grow into a bottomless hatred for my existence. So for now, life, your pitiful life, now Izuku Hanma. Until then," and with that the man put the young child out of commission with a single poke to the head. 2 hours later, Izuku awakens to a drop to his eyelids. It was raining from the sky, just like the rain from his own eyes, as he got up and limped to his father's corpse. "Dad, I am sorry," the young Hanma said wimpy with his head down as he makes towards his father. "What do I do?" is the only thing he could think of saying as he tried to bring his father back to the house with him, but had no strength to do so. So instead, Izuku just lied there in the rain with his forever gone hero. Izuku awakens on a bed in a white room. He looks around to find a woman talking to the man in a white coat. The woman had sandy blonde, short, explosive-looking hair that was shouting while holding the hand of a little girl about the same age as him, with the same hairstyle as her mother only, but longer to the shoulders. At the moment, Izuku tried getting up only to be sore and drained as the body won't let get up. The man caught this and excused himself from the mother and daughter by saying, "Give me a minute." The woman stopped yelling, turning her attention to the child on the bed. She went from a look anger to a one of concern. The green-haired boy looked at man as he made his way to him. "Hello," greets the man. Izuku then politely greeted him back. After a few minutes of listening to the doctor, Izuku had come to know what had happened. The little girl that was next to the lady were on a family field trip with their third member of the family, the father. They only soon came across a clearing in the middle of the forest, sighting 2 figures on the grass ground, lying there not moving, as one was not breathing at all. This worried the family, so they called an ambulance, but they were too late for the man, but the boy had a fever. This would explain why Izuku was in the hospital, and soon he thanked the mother and daughter for finding him in a depressing tone, which the mother caught on. But the girl didn't. "Hey, what's your problem? We got you to safety, and this is how you thank us," with a sad face. The young lass shouted in the boy's face. "Enough, brat, stop hurting him." Even more, the lady shouted toward her young rude daughter, but at this point Izuku knew he was coming off a rude. "It's all right, miss. She is right. I am rude to the both of you," the young Hanma said loud enough for all 3 people to hear. "By the way, young Hanma, do you have any other parent or guardians that we can inform of your situation?" the doctor asked. No, I don't. My dad was the only there for me since my mother passed the day I was born," Izuku responded. This response made the mother quiet because if she knew what Izuku did not understand, then she would assume that his mother died of childbirth. "I only heard things about my mom from my dad, and how she was a beautiful person on the inside and stunning on the out, and how her quirk can lift objects 100 times more heavier than her own weight," the boy continued. "I just got her quirk on my 5th birthday, and now it's gone now." Tears started coming out of the boy's eyes full of sorrow. The loss of his dad and the remains of a birthright now gone, his mind was breaking, but one thing he knew he had to do. Kill all for one. What do you mean it's gone? Do you mean you don't know how to use your quirk yet? The sandy blonde last question. No. It was taken from me by a man that ended my father's life that night. With still tear-stained eyes, but with a cold voice full of resentment that only sacred the girl and concerned the adults. What do you mean taken? The doctor questioned. The second he grabbed me by the neck and I tried to escape, but pulling a knife towards me, but I couldn't bring it, the boy responded with a melancholy tone. What good can that power do? Echoed into his mind over and over again, only to feel a hand on his back from the women. I don't know what happened, but you can stay with us until we can find any other relatives that you may not know, said in a reassuring voice that was making an effort to help the boy. I don't want to be a bother, the boy responded. Quit it with the nonsense. I do not mind, and I am sure my husband won't either. She's still trying to be reassuring to the boy. Wait, what do you mean he can stay with us? The lass shouted, clearly annoyed. Quiet, Katsuki. The mom finally had enough with her daughter's antics. Okay, can I go with you? Izuku asked, to get a reply by both mother and daughter, yes/no. 1 hour later. After finishing some filling documents for Izuku Hanma, they decide to leave the hospital. As they left the entrance, Izuku is halted by the mother, who is known as Mitsuki Bakugo. Alright, why don't you introduce yourself to each other? The children look at the lady with a confused look, then looked at each other. The last spoke out. Katsuki Bakugo. Then the lad. Izuku Hanma. Want to be friends? Katsuki asked with a smile on her face. Yeah, Izuku replied with a return of a smile. And so left together into the city. It's been 2 days since my dad's gruesome demise, and now I am temporarily living with another family until we find some of my other relatives. The Bakugo household seemed to take the situation rather nicely, more than what I expected. Izuku, the man or the father of the house, called my attention on the dinner table, and was the only member present at the house at the time. Yes, Bakugo-san, the boy replied, snapped out of his thoughts as he looks at the adult. Your food is going to get cold, the male Bakugo stated while gesturing the Hanma to eat his food in patient tone of speech. Oh right. Sorry, Izuku replies back, looking down at his food, and proceeds to eat it slowly while thinking how to make himself stronger to face his ultimate goal. Do you want to talk about it? The man said in a concerned voice. I know it is difficult for you to be going through that, and I admit I don't really know how to relate, but I do know one thing. This brought the young lad's focus to the older man, and continue to listen. It is better to talk about the problems you have now than to let them pile up and cause you trouble later on. The man finished his statement only to be followed by a silent period that lasted a few seconds to the man, but several minutes to the boy. I never got to know my mom, but you already know that. He opened his mouth with explaining the start of his problems with a complex and difficult one to understand for his age. Dad only told me what I know. Her name was Inko Hanma, but her original name was Midoriya. She had long straight black hair with green highlights like me, possessed a grade quirk of telekinesis that was powerful enough to stop a bullet train going at 80 miles per hour, yet she carried a sense of goodness in her heart and a weak body. And I don't understand why I never got to meet her, because Dad would say she passed on from this world the day I was born. The boy paused for a few seconds with a look of sadness that was present on his freckled face. My dad was the only person there for me, and I looked up to him as a role model, a hero even though with no quirk, and a father that loved and respected. Izuku paused as he sniffed and huffed out a weak cry, and he continued, Dad would take any challenge from anyone with good sportsmanship and would face many opponents with powerful quirks with nothing with quirkless bare hands. But that day after my birthday, he promised me that he would start to train me, so we went into the forest near our little house, and at this point the young boy was bawling out tears of those happy moments with his dad until a certain memory showed that ceased his tears and cries. A hand going through his father's chest as he is being held up by the face with the other hand, and in a split moment Baki's heart was ripped out and crushed by the hand of his murder. Then the man suddenly let go of his father's face, letting him drop. At this moment time stopped for the boy attempt to reach out with his hands to get a hold of his father, only to see a flash of red liquid splattered on the grass. It was his dad's blood, but not just a thin and little stain on his chest. His whole body was covered in his father's iron. But he couldn't see what was happening as he dropped his rubbing his eye of the blood to see his father on the ground with no hole. No, a gaping chest wound that covered his whole chest and parts of his upper abdomen. As the boy saw this wide-eyed, moving slowly at his father's corpse, seeing more of his wounds, 7-sword stab into his abdomen, a spear-like pierce through his right thigh, while having a hammered wound, which made his left calf look like crushed car from impact with another. Izuku tried to wake his father, but only managed to lift him to his left side before seeing the demon on his father's back, crossed with chainsaw slashes formed into an X. His father always had his back towards his son whenever he faces danger or a challenge. That demon back brought fear to all who opposed and faced him, but to the boy it gave him the strength he needed to survive, courage to continue living, protection that he did not have for himself, and the love that his father would give to only his son. But now that was gone along with his father. And that man came to challenge him to fight, but not before he knocked me out, resuming his conflict with the older Bakugo. It was morning when I regained consciousness, but it was already too late. Izuku sat there with his eyes full of many emotions. Wrath, regret, sorrow, but then felt a sudden warmth around his body. He looked up to see the male Bakugo bringing him into an embrace that the child needed. "We're here for you no matter what happens." This caused the boy return the hug and cried into the man's shoulder with all his might. He wasn't going to see his dad ever again, and he knew that, but it still hurt a lot because he wished he would be for him. After a couple minutes of crying, Izuku finally calmed down as he looked at the man with tear-stained eyes, but with a genuine smile. "Thank you, Bakugo-san." The man shocked his head and said, "Call me Uncle Masaru, lad, it's all right." The child looked at man, but still smiled as he replied, "Thanks, Uncle Masaru." It has been a week after Izuku's emotional breakdown, and the Bakugo family have him and Katsuki go to the park and help the boy gain some friends and clear state of mind from the events that changed the young Hanma's life. This, of course, troubled the young Hanma, because when he was living in the forest with his dad, he did not get to socialize with kids as again. But on the bright side, he would get to make new friends besides Katsuki. There's nothing wrong with her, it's just that the boy never socialized with anyone else besides her and her family. "Kachin, what do we do here?" the boy asked as he and the last that let him approach the local children's park. Throughout the week, he got situated. He and his friend gave each other nicknames that seemed fitting to their calling. Kachin was just a cute but simply nickname fitting for Katsuki. While she disliked it at first, she grew fond of it because it was not insult to her or her pride. "You'll see, Deku," she responded back with a sly smile that Izuku did not catch, but had a frown of confusion that was clearly visible to her. Deku, a nickname, is useless, but it perfectly described Izuku's personality. Even humble and shy, it was useless to put him down or stop him in any way because of his determination for his one and only goal: kill all for one. Only she knew this, but was against the entire idea even now, but she wanted to support him in any way possible. But deep down she was worried for him. "Hey, Bakugo," one of the kids called out to her from their group of friends. Katsuki looked back at Izuku and gestured him to come on, and they went to the group of children. "Hey girls," Bakugo greeted with a high-esteemed smile full of pride. As Izuku stands behind her back still to shy introduce himself in front of kids his age. Katsuki caught this and decided to speak up. "This is Izuku Hanma, he is new friend I made a not too long ago." All the girls look at the boy with frowns, smiles, and or just disgust. "I thought we all agreed no boys allowed." The girl with ear jaxes for earlobes stayed full of distaste for the young male's presence. "I agree with Jiro," the frog-like lass spoke up. Though she does not look like it, she was not fond of the idea of a boy joining their group. "Yeah, he probably has a weak quirk like the rest of them," states the pony-tailed spike-pointed hair. All of these comments made Izuku sad for not being accepted to his own age peers. Although one thing did made him think weak like the rest of them, he thought out loud. This caught the attention of all the girls as the followed by rude insult. "You did you not hear her weak like the rest of them, you deaf bush?" The girl no as Jiro snared at him. This caused Izuku to have a sad look as he thought he should apologize for speaking out. "I am sore." "Izuku, you don't have to say you're sorry." Clearly pissed at her friends treating Izuku like trash because it was not his fault at all, but her own, she should be the one to be chid out by her friends. But Izuku tried to rebuttal against Katsuki's claim, but was cut off by having his body fell to the ground, but he couldn't stop the amount of force applied to his body. "Izuku, Katsuki now concerned for her fallen friend, but she knew this is happening. Looking back at the group of girls, one had her hands out before her. She had a brown-haired bob style, but with a menacing grin on her face as she said, "You should know your place, weakling," she said in a one that only angered the boy, as it reminded him of the one thing that killed his father, his own weakness. As Izuku struggled to get off the ground as he grit his teeth, but when his gravity against him it proved futile. It is when his only friend spoke up. "Stop, Uraraka, you're hurting him." Please was the few thing that damaged the explosive girl because it hurt her pride, but she knew that it was the only to stop Izuku's suffering at the moment. "Oh, give me a reason why," Uraraka said as she slowly gripped her left hand, which intensified the gravity on Izuku, but did not care. He was now shouting with his might to get up and prove the gravity got wrong, as you see blood dripping from his eyes and nose. "Can't you see you're hurting him? Stop," Katsuki pleaded. With gravity manipulation quirk user, which she responded coldly. "You're one of the top strongest girls in our group, and here you are sticking up to this lowly trash. I think you gotten soft, Bakugo." This made Izuku stop any defiance towards the power, and he finally gave up trying to prove himself. "I give up," the boy whispered. "What was that, Bush?" Uraraka questioned. "I said I give up." After sentence, Izuku was finally let go from the grasp of gravity itself. "Looks like you finally know your place," the brown-haired girl said as she crossed her arms across her chest. "Leave the gravity," last stated. Without a single word, Izuku turned his back from the group of girls and started walking away until he felt a grip on his hand. It was Katsuki. "Hey Deku, if you're leaving then I am leaving too," but the response was not what she expected. He just simply turned to her and said, "No, it's okay, I don't belong here anyway. So I am going for a walk around here. I will be back by sunset. In the meantime, have fun catching." And like that he left. This hurt the lass because he does not understand the world they lived in today. 15 minutes later. Izuku walk around the park, but in a few block radius as he looks at the shops and stores that he passes full of people living their normal lives. That is until he comes by a hero store that sells anything accordance to heroes, from costumes, masks, backpacks, clothes, and etc. Izuku step inside, not see anything, because one, he did not have any money on him, as well as heroism was not his thing. The only reason he went in because they had the news channel and decided to pass the time watching it. As the boy watches the television, a program changes into a popularity poll, which he did not mind at all since it killed time. After going over about 20 heroes, he notices that there is no male heroes, only females, in which case he just brushed it off. 10 minutes later. Now the lad was confused. There was not a single male hero on the popularity poll that went from rank 1st to 10,000. He was curious at this point and asked the cashier about it. A Mr. catching his attention, the guy looks over the countertop to see a little boy with black curly hair and green highlights. "What's up, kid, looking for something?" the man asked, to only get shook from the boy's head. "No, I have a question." The man perked his right eyebrow up and waited to hear his concern. "How come there are no male heroes?" This made the man chuckles a bit until he realized the kid was serious, and as he relied. "To answer your question, no male has a strong enough quirk for any heroism, from fighting or rescuing. Ever since the second generation of heroes, more females are born with incredible powers, but males start to lose the quality of theirs. We live in the 10th generation of heroes, so you can guess right now that a lot males don't have strong quirks to anything befitting enough for to do any hero work. That is why you see a lot of female heroes in that poll you just watched. Even though every person in the world has a quirk, females are the dominant when it comes to this career, as well as others. Hell, even to the point where men are publicly humiliated, shamed, and abused. And I take that happened to you today, as knowing the blood stain on your shirt, kid." Izuku looked down on his shirt to indeed see a decent blood stain on his shirt. Then he looked up at the man and said what surprised the both of them along the many females in the store. "What if I become a hero? Will that change the outlook in men? Will that restore the dignity that many have lost?" He asked the man, only to get shocked look on his face, then have start laughter for a good 30 seconds. "Okay, kid, the only you can become a hero is that you have a powerful enough quirk. I hope you don't mind me asking, what is yours?" He asks. "I don't have one." This shocked the cashier, the women in the store, and the people outside of it. As well, they never thought a quirkless kid can still exist ever since they stopped appearing in the 5th generation. But some had their doubts because they would think that he was just a late bloomer and hope he would get at least a weak quirk, because if society knew that a quirk-less kid still around then, that child will have to face hell itself if he wants to become a hero. Anyway, thanks for answering my question. Have a nice day. The boy bowed to the man and left the store to the park once more as the sunset approaches. 15 minutes later, Izuku finally arrives at the park that he left Katsuki there. As he makes his way to the entrance, he sees a little girl playing in the sandbox alone. His first thought was that he should just avoid conversation with girl at this point, but something drawn him closer. But as he got closer, he could see a horn or two. Curly hair like his, but pink. Her eyes carried black eyes, and a yellow eye that looked amazing as the sunlight reflected of her, as well as pink skin. But the thing that stood out the most was her frown of sadness. Quickly noticing this, he ran up to the girl to see if she was all right. But before he could ask, she saw a burn mark on her back, cuts on her legs and forearms, and a purple bruise on her left cheek. She had been bullied. Izuku crouched down and looked at her eye level and finally got her attention by offering his hand. The young pink girl looked at the hand in front of her and saw it belonged to a boy with a concerned look on his face. "Need some help there, miss?" he asked with a worried tone. "Thank you, but I'm okay," she responded back to him. Before he could respond, he heard footsteps, multiple to be in fact behind him. As he turned to see who it is, and he stood there in a quiet anger that only the pink girl could sense. The group of girls that he had trouble earlier today were in front of the pair, and the one that was leading them was Katsuki. "Move aside, Deku," she demanded as many explosions happened in the air around her. "You were a part of this, Katsuki?" Hearing her first name said in such a tone only brought fear and sadness to her, because deep down she knew was going to get in the way of her dominance. "Yes," she responded coldly. "Why?" He needed to know why she did this. "Because she was weak like you," she said. "Weak, weak, weak." At this point, he was full of wrath for the bullies. It was one thing for him to be bullied because of his weaknesses, but some else who was gang up and called weak for not being able to protect themselves, it hurt him a lot and made his blood boil. He could not believe this was the Katsuki that he had known for a week. "Like I said, move out of the way, Izuku," she demanded. "Like it or not, will not remove from this spot. If you are going after her, then you're going to have get through me," claimed the young boy with a smile on his face, with his legs shaking full of nervousness. This surprised the pink girl, who was been defended by a boy. But as she thought this, she heard one last thing before everything goes down. "Let's get him." With that being said, all 5 girls activated their quirks and charged at the boy with a determined face. Pain was present that evening as the child, barely breathing in the park, beaten up by the gang that attack. The boy once had a green shirt, now nothing but tattered material barely hanging on to his upper body, with burn across his body thanks to Katsuki, with a broken rib or two from the dual-head metal baseball bat, in which appeared out of thin air from the ponytailed spiky-haired girl conjured. His eyes, ears, nose and mouth were leaking drips of blood caused by the massive gravity force displayed upon him by the brown-haired girl known as Uraraka. The whip lashes on his legs did not help him at all, as well as the twisted ankle from which he attained from the frog-like girl. He could only hope that the girl he was protecting was not hurt at all, since she was already harmed by the female bullies earlier today. He could only hear the cries of the pink lass, which was barely hearable thanks to Gyro-san's audio blasting quirk. He then turned his head to the left to see her on her knees with her hands by her face, crying her little heart out of fear, regret, or resentment. Izuku did not know, but he did know one thing: he had to comfort her. "Did they hurt you more?" the boy asked weakly due to the pain. This caused the girl to look at the boy with a confused but quickly changed to her expression of worry. She crawled to him as best as she could since her legs were already in pain. Once she got to him, she made eye contact, and still some tears coming out before she responded. "No, I am okay, but I am sorry you got hurt." With that being said, the boy realized that the girl was crying before him. He raised his left hand as best he could to reach her teary eyes with his bloody fingers. "Don't be, it was my choice to step up for you," the Hanma said this as he brushed the tears of the right side of her face. The girl became wide-eyed as she began to lift her right palm upon his left hand to keep it there. This surprised the boy, but he was too tired to show any form of embarrassment, so he simply blushed and genuinely smiled at her, which caused her to smile as well. "Thank you," the girl said as she continued. "Mina Ashido is my name. What is yours?" she asks. "Izuku Hanma." Ashido replies the injured boy. They both stayed there silently for a couple of minutes until they heard footsteps, two to be in fact that drew the attention of both children, causing Mina to look up while Izuku to turn his head to the right. Both saw a woman and a daughter, both saw the explosive hairstyles, and both saw the ruby eyes that were staring at them. Aunt Misakai's boy said aloud. He was bracing for more harm when he called out to her, but what can he do with his body hurt and damaged like this? But the one thing he did not expect was an embrace with a worrisome shout. Who did this to you, Izuku? She cries from the sight of his adoptive nephew. At this point, the boy did not know how to respond, be truthful with today's events with, or be quiet about them. He looked at Katsuki to only see a face full of disgust directed at him. Some random guy's auntie, he said in a simply tone. He would rather not tell on Katsuki and decided if this continues, Aunt Misuki will find out sooner or later, but for now the quarrel between Deku and Kachin never existed. He felt himself being pushed away from the hug, but had hands gripped to his shoulders as he saw the concerned adult in front of him. While this was happening, the Mina sat up on her knees since they would hurt if she would try to stretch them out, or at the very least extend them. She watched the ordeal of nephew and aunt. The pink lass looked at Izuku, the boy, the inferior gender, defend her with a smile of sincerity. Thank you for defending me, the pink girl spoke up, catching the attention of all three of them as she looked at Izuku with gratitude. Oh my, you're hurt too, young lady, Misuki said in surprise after seeing the condition she was in. Mina was quiet, making her way behind Izuku, because she downright worried for her own safety since this was the mother of her bully, so she would assume that she would hold the same behavior as Katsuki. But she was wrong. Here, let me help you too, the older Bakugos said as she lifted both children to her chest with one arm, holding the green-haired boy, while the pink-haired girl as she left the park to a local clinic. Ashido, do you have any family that we can contact to tell them about your location, and we can wait until they show up? The women asked as the injured children were being treated by a rapid healing quirk from the young nurse. After a few seconds of the instantaneous healing, it would make the older Bakugo question why the children were there at the clinic in the first place. This hit the pink child because she was abandoned by her family, not because she had a mutant quirk, no, because she looked like a freak in their eyes, which only brought more pain because she was alone. When she was living by herself in the streets, people would give her looks and insult or harm her if she tried to interact with them. As for those who just ignored her existence when approached for a plea for food or water, they would just say, ask someone else or leave me alone. Finally, the pink girl spoke up. No, I don't have anyone coming for me, Mina said, sad-spoken, that made both Izuku and Katsuki look wide-eyed, thinking the same thing. She is like me / Izuku. They we pulled from their thoughts to see Misuki walking over the pink girl and gave her a hug. Why don't you stay with us then, Ashido? The older women asked. This caused Mina to be physically shaken by this question. She never had anyone willing enough to look after her because of her quirk, which gave her a very rare appearance that was always called a freak or alien, but this woman before her embracing her like no one did before, showing the same kindness as the boy that defend her safety since he was the main target of the beating. She returned the hug with as much need for having someone accepted her as a person, a child in need of affection, that what Mina needed at this moment. Thank you, thank you, thank you, the pink lass cried out with happiness and joy. To Izuku, this scene held meaning and nostalgia of not too long ago when Misuki offered to take him when he was at the hospital and the embrace Masaru gave him when he opened up to him at the dinner table of the Bakugo residence. To say the least, he was really happy for Mina, but something was getting him concerned for her sake. What happened to Mina's family? Did they not want her? Or was it something horrific that was similar what he went through? Regardless, these questions can wait and be answered when Mina herself is ready to answer for herself. Now let's go home, you three. This called the attention of all three with surprise. For Mina, she finally has a home to be accepted into, but there is an elephant in the room. She will be living with the same girl that harmed her and her protector. Izuku was surprised for different reasons. One, he would get to know Mina and hopefully make a real friend, and he would have a bigger family to thank for once he goes off on his journey. Katsuki was surprised that was already livid to the point where she would have explosions all over the room itself by the fact she had to deal with another kid entering her home, and the fact was worse because she was the bully of this new girl and boy, so things can be tense. 30 minutes. After returning to the Bakugo residence and explaining the situation to Masaru, they got Mina situated to share rooms with Katsuki, which made her nervous. Katsuki seems like a different person when not around her group of friends. She is more docile, patient, and calm. Later that night, Izuku sits on the floor, which it is his bed with covers and bed sheets underneath him as he thinks about the events that transpired today. And he realized something. He needs to study quirks of others if he ever going to have a chance against his opponents, hero career, and most importantly his goal. The next morning, Izuku was not an early bird but the first of the 3 children to get up to make himself some toast, and decided to wait for the other 2 girls to come out and chat with them. The second person was Mina with a tired look on her face. She sat down on the chair by the countertop in the kitchen and just sat there silently. Since the boy was near her in the living room eating his toast, he finished his bite and greeted her. "Good morning, Ashido-san," he said loud enough for the girl to hear. She turned her head to see a boy smiling at her, as she did, as well then responded with, "Sorry, I did not see you there. Good morning, Hanma-san." After a couple of minutes of small talk about how Mina taking in her new home, they both heard the master room, door opening only belonging to the masters of the house. They saw a man appear out as he himself is tired as he waved to the 2 children, now sitting on the couch to hear "Good morning, Uncle Masaru." They both greeted, and now the adult felt it would be polite to greet them back. "Good morning, you two. Did you get yourself something to eat?" To see nods from both kids made the older Bakugo less worried, but he still had to ask, "What did you both eat?" Izuku simply responded with toast, as Mina replied with toast as well. This caused Masaru to make a mental note. Teach this kids how to cook. He made this note because there will be some days where the kids are by themselves and eat off junk food or whatever's in the fridge, so teaching them the culinary arts would benefit their future as well. Meanwhile, outside Masaru's thoughts, Izuku and Mina were talking to each other about what to do today. Mina suggested they go to the arcade and spend some time playing, and Izuku, who had no other plans than to study quirks along throughout the day, agreed to join her for an hour or more of fun. Both of them let Masaru know that they were going out to play. He reluctantly agreed after seeing 2 pairs of puppy dog eyes pleading to have their fun. On the way to the mall, "Hey Hanma, have you ever been to an arcade before?" This shocked Izuku since after less than a day of knowing Mina, she just dropped honorifics like that. "No, I haven't gone before. Is it good, Ashido-san?" He responded with a question since he lived out in the wilderness his whole up till now, so he doesn't know a lot the culture the city possesses. "Don't worry, it's going to be fun." She reassured him that it was nothing bad, and to boost that claim she smiled at him with kindness joy. "Okay, I will try it out," he simply responded with a returning smile of gratefulness. Not for the arcade, not for the trip there, no, only have Mina as his friend. After the arcade, Izuku did found himself enjoying the fun mini-games he played with Mina, from bowling to simple 2-player shooting games. Mina was enjoying the company of this boy since no one would approach her when she went to this public places, but having fun with Izuku lifted her day up a lot as they walked back home. "Hey Hanma," she gets his attention as he turns around to face her. "Yes, Ashido-san," he responded. "Can we do this again?" Did she really just ask that? Izuku questions himself before saying, "Of course, today was fun. I really enjoyed it. And I hope you did too, Ashido-san." This made the Mina happy with their fun day, but before they both proceed to head home, she asked him on last question, "Hanma-san, will you be my friend?" Izuku paused for a bit, then had a genuine smile on his face as he responds, "What do you mean?" "We're already friends, Ashido-san." This surprised the girl because since when did her ever consider her his friend, but this ultimately made Mina really happy because of a simple yet powerful fact. She made her first real friend. 7 years. 7 years since meeting the Bakugo family, learning about the female dominance, and making his first honest friend Mina Ashido. Izuku still reminiscing the past more than half a decade, getting to know both his childhood best friend and friend turned bully. Mina grew up to an energetic girl that saw the bright side of anything since in her mind, if nothing else was good, then there is always hope for an opportunity to change the situation, as Izuku assumed Mina's mindset. Katsuki, on the other hand, grew an angry attitude towards those who harm her pride and loved ones, but still carry a calm expression on her face when nothing else going on. Izuku grew with the understanding that he will have to be stronger, smarter, better in all categories in order to be a hero, so to occupy his time, he would do 3 major hobbies. studying others' quirks and writing them down so he can memorize the fundamentals of it, so in the future, he would be able to face those with quirks that have different understanding and hard to find drawbacks, since most of his opponents are going to be females. Not that he meant any degrading position on the males it. Just that there are very few that possess a grade quirk, since it was the highest ever recorded in his generation. Working out was another hobby that he took if he was going to face some intense sessions of non-stop athleticism when doing heroic acts to save lives from after effects of natural disasters and other crises with villains as well. And the most important to Izuku, in honor of his father, he had taken up being a martial artist, but no just any martial artist, the strongest kind, a grappler. The reason why he chose this was because so he can fight opponents on even playing field, but being a grappler was easier said than done. Sure, you practice your basic movements like form, punched kicks, as well as spiritually self-disciplined, but there was more to being a grappler than that. For one, you must come to accept death embrace and give everything you got in any challenge you face, which the boy is currently having trouble with the fact that in this art, you only get one shot and have live day by day with that fate. In simple words, it's do or die when you face any wall in front of you, no matter how big or small. Izuku, he heard his aunt call out for him. Get up, you're going to be late for your first day of school, she had. He remembered today was his first day of middle school. Though he was nervous meeting new people, he was glad that he was going after the girls left, because he did not want to publicly embarrass them, even though Mina stated that she did not mind his company at all, but Izuku insisted, because their first impressions would discriminate them both. On my way, Izuku shouted to respond. After a few minutes of getting himself ready with the whole brush your teeth, morning cold shower, and putting on his uniform, while also packing his workout GI for the intense workout session later on, Izuku made his way towards the living room and grabbing 2 hard-boiled eggs for his breakfast for his protein in the morning. Misuki saw this and decided to point it out. Keep eating like that, and you will be starving later on the day, boy. Izuku just nodded, as he did understand cutting weight sucked, but he was trying out different things to get his body in a lower body fat percentage, since he can't have anything slowing him down. Bye, Aunt Misuki, I will see you later, he smiles as he turns and leaves through the front door, but before he steps out in the world, he heard his aunt say, go kick ass, kid. Izuku did not know whose ass he had to kick, but the boy had a couple of ideas. He gave his aunt a thumbs up with his right hand before saying, I will. Then he left to the uncertainty that is school. 12 minutes later. On the road to the entrance of the school, the young Hanma noticed a couple of things. First was the boys had either been shaken or really cautious about their surroundings, because it would seem that there are more girls than boys by a great deal amount. Second, all girls seem to be eyeing with hunger, instead of glee or embarrassment, the boys that they deem attractive, but Izuku did not know if it were a good or bad thing that nobody eyed him, so he just brushed this thought off. And the last thing was that boys' and girls' uniforms were upkept differently, such as the girls had a clean, iron-prepared, and neat uniform, although for the boys, they consisted of dirty, wrinkled, and downright unorganized clothing that was either too baggy or they were missing a piece of the uniform and had to replace it with one of their own clothing. Izuku sighs in relief that he had dark-colored forest green pants and spares that otherwise it would have been bright or bland colors of shorts, since he was missing the leg piece. When finally arriving at the school, he went to the board on the wall in the room where you put your class shoes on and take your normal shoes off, or commonly known as the shoe locker amongst his peers. He walked up to the board to find his shoe locker number and his homeroom number. Number 9 and Class 1D, he looked at the location of both shoe locker and classroom as he said it in whisper. Izuku then proceeded to go to his assigned shoe locker and realized he doesn't have a shoe piece either, so he simply went towards his class, 1D. As Izuku approaches the door, he then hopes that today can go by quicker so he can just leave and then train after school, but hope is all he can do at this point. As he reaches for the handle and starts sliding the door to the right, he instantly felt eyes on him. He was not disturbed by this, so he just walked in to find a seat in the back or near a window. When walking in the class, he looked around and found a table next to a guy with shark-like teeth and decided to sit down next to him. Hello, Izuku greeted the black-haired shark-toothed classmate, to which responded with a toothy grin and simply said, hey dude. The boy raises his hand to signify a handshake. Izuku happily took it and said Izuku Hanma with a smile on his face to hear the boy's name, Ijiro Kirishima. After a couple of minutes, the class finally filled up and started to become a bit loud. As Izuku was waiting, having his arms crossed over his chest as he closed his eyes in a focused manner which did not draw any attention to himself as he daydreams or in reality nap. About the next 10 minutes, we pretty hectic for the teacher coming in. She was still clearing her voice for a couple of seconds before yelling, "Silence, you brats." This barely woke up Izuku from his nap as he partially lifted his left eyelid to see a young adult whose sign at the thought she had to raise her voice to shut the class up. Izuku, now awake and paid attention to her introduction, Akane Tendo. That was her name. Now I want you one by one stand up and introduce yourselves. As one after announced their names and Quirk, even though it was not what the teacher wanted, but she just let it slide. Izuku was the last one to be called as he felt all eyes on him. He stood up and noticed something. Out of 30 kids, there were only 5 boys in the Hanma's classroom. "Hello, I'm Izuku Hanma." And with that being said, he sat back down and continued to mind his business until one girl spoke up, "What's your quirk?" The boy looked at her with a smile and simply said, "I don't have on." This shocked the whole class, even the teacher, because it is extremely 0.0000001% chance of never happened. Kirishima looked at the boy with both pity and surprise for his new classmate. Hell, at this point, all of the boys were hoping that this kid can survive 3 years of middle no scratch that his whole life. The next few morning class were simple because of the detailed note-taking he did for heroes, so this was no different with mathematics, Japanese literature, and chemistry. Come lunch, Izuku planned on sitting by himself somewhere where people would not be disturbed by his quirklessness since he was already the gossip of the day. Somewhere in the school building, a certain pink girl was talking with her new friends, but she did not seem as happy as she led on to be. Truth be told, she would rather hang out with Izuku because in all of these 7 years they've been close friends, there was never a dull moment with the green-haired Hanma, and only hope he felt the same way right now. As for the explosive lass, was at a lunch table with the same peers that torment the quirkless boy today, which consist of 5 girls, including Katsuki Bakugo, the nuclear mistress. There is the gravity princess Achicho Uraraka, Miss Volume Blaster Jiro Kyoka, the queen of frogs Tiu Azui, and the creation maiden Momo Yozu. All of these girls sit only about a few rows away from the pink girl. Katsuki and her made eye contact a couple of times, but just stare at each other with animosity. But both were wondering the same thing, where is Izuku? Walking around the school building to find someplace secluded was hard enough goal for the wandering boy. But the one place he found at the last few minutes of lunch was by the roof of the school. He could go on top of the staircase building and rest there before anyone can get to the roof next time he is here. As Izuku stepped inside, he heard the bells ring, meaning that he has to head back to Class 1D. As usual, the class was still loud and Tendo Sensei had to yell again to get their attention. The afternoon classes were like extracurricular classes more than actual classes for college. Izuku has guitar, PE, and a free period so he can leave early at any time he wants to. Guitar was intriguing to say the least, because maybe he can find the time to play a song when he starts practicing the instrument more. P was more of an extra training session since all the kids had to do was be active the whole period with sports, exercises, or weight room. In the free period, the boy could do what he wanted, from studying, practice martial arts, or just leave. The end of the first day of school was here, and Izuku decided to practice his shadow boxing on the roof during his free period and left about 10 minutes before school ended. Usually after doing anything, Izuku would run to his old home territory in the wilderness, which is about 5 miles. Once upon arriving there, Izuku started his intense workout session with doing push-ups, sit-ups, squats, pull-ups on the tree branches, practicing form, spend an hour of using trees as targets for his kicks, punches, knees, elbows, and overall techniques like 1-inch punch, which is really far from beginner's level. The boy sprint up the mountain until he can't go anymore, and finally meditate, so he can calm himself from the pain he received during today's training. He was glad he had a long-sleeve uniform because his exercise clothes have patches of blood in different places, and that was not the least of it. His knuckles, elbows, shins, knees, and back are bleeding from his session of suffering. So having pants was a bonus on his part, so his aunt and uncle would not worry about his condition and question him what kind of training that leaves him a mess. But so far he got by saying he is practicing his boxing skills, even though there is some truth in that statement. It was sunset when Izuku finally got home, and Mina was waiting for him, like usual, on the couch of the living room. She was happy that he got home safe, but was worried when she saw the state his hands were in. The pink lass led the green lad to the bathroom to help clean the wounds, in which made Izuku embarrassed. Mina, I can do it myself, he claims. Yeah, right, you probably just hurt yourself even more than before. Here, give me your clothes, she demanded, but Izuku replied with no thanks, it's my clothes, I clean them myself. Mina became very demanding on the situation and won the little disagreement as Izuku forfeited. After taking off some of his clothes, Mina noticed it was not just his hands but his elbows, shins, knees, and back that were cut up and bleeding. Izuku? What is this? The girl became weary, and it did not help that Izuku did not turn around to face her, but only said a simple phrase, no pain, no gain. No pain, no gain, the boy said to the pink girl as she was examining the numerous cuts, scrapes, and bruises on the boy's body. This what you do every day for the past 5 years in the 7 I had known you? She asked with a sad expression on her face to only get nod from the boy. Why do this? I mean, what is the point of all these wounds, Izuku? She questions the state his body's in right now as she used her acidic quirk on the big noticeable wounds to remove any bacteria on his body. To answer your question, it is to get strong, simple as that. The boy could not tell Mina his goals, so a simply reason that was truthful to some extent was all he could provide with. As Mina turns on the shower and putting it warm, Izuku immediately spoke up, change to cold, please, Mina. This caught the young lass's attention as she was about to rebuttal that decision. Izuku stood up in front of her with a lost in thought kind of face as knelt down, turned the knob to all the way to the end of cold water. This helps my metabolism, strengthens my immune system, and help me discipline my fight or flight responses to get better control of them. Mina did not know what to think, maybe tell Uncle and Auntie Bakugo about Izuku's state and what kind of hobbies that are hurting him. Then again, how would that make the boy she likes feel after been ratted out on his pastimes? Sure, exercise daily was healthy, but not to the point where you have to physically destroy yourself just to be stronger. Hey Mina, the Hanma got the Ashido's attention with a look of concern. Keep this between us, okay? He said as if we're asking, not demanding her, which made the girl feel a bit at ease since he had a smile that basically read, sorry for making you worry. Okay, I will, but in return I want you to tell me, why did you keep this to yourself all these years? Because these scars look like they just only to fade. His eyes slightly raised as he did not expect that from her. Yeah, sure, just after dinner, okay? Or tomorrow after school. The girl simply nodded and left the boy alone in the bathroom to get himself cleaned up. When exiting the bathroom, Mina made her way to the kitchen to cook dinner for both herself and Izuku, since the Bakugo family left out on an outing with some of the neighbors. Over the past years, Uncle Masaru has taught all 3 children culinary arts, which led them to produce their own breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Occasionally, one of the 3 youngsters would cook the whole family dinner to help their own cooking skills. Mina did not mind at all. In fact, she enjoyed cooking to the point where every week she would come up a new recipe herself or look some up on her phone that would satisfy the family, even herself. She was planning on cooking brown rice and egg with some cooked fish on the side since Izuku need a protein diet, and she understood why. Meanwhile, after washing all the blood out and double cleaning the wounds from his training, Izuku went to his room and changed into a jet black long-sleeve shirt with baggy sweatpants that were dark green. Upon finished changing clothes, he opened his bedroom door to see yellow eyes looking into his green ones. Right on time. Dinner is ready, let's eat, she said with a glee and joy. Okay, right behind you, the green-haired boy said. When arriving to the table, the second he processed what he saw, his stomach growled for food, which caused the boy to blush as he scratches the back of his neck along with a smile on his face. Mina just sighed with her hands on her hips, then look at him with a return smile on her face as she said happily, let's dig in. Thanks for the meal, both preteens said out loud as they sit across from each other. Izuku was hungry and thankful that Mina was a better cook than him. Mina was enjoying the company that Izuku always provided with sense of pleasantries and kindness, even though he was bad with table manners and a bit dense. Through dinner, both kids conversed with each other about topics. Most of these topics were related with their first day of middle school. From Izuku class, shocked expressions of finding out his quirkless nature, which made him laugh, because he found it priceless. As for Mina, on the other hand, she grew a sense of worry, then stated, you know, you should be careful from here on out, Izu, especially those 4 girls that hang out with Katsuki. Since you willingly gave out your lack of a quirk info, many will try to make your next 3 years harder. She said, full of concern as the boy caught on this and attempted to lighten the mood with a reassuring response. I already know that, Mina, and I did say it with intention of having it plan on happen. Plus my class hell, the whole school will find out sooner or later with those physicals we get twice a semester. I would have been found out on the first examination. And lastly, Izu, that's a new one. Well, I can't be surprised you went from Hanma-san, Hanma, Han, Izuku, and now Izu. He chuckled at the last comment to only get a comeback verbally speaking. Oh, you mister. I can say the about you why I know you went from Ashido-san, Ashido, Ashi, and to present name Mina you used today. This caused the boy to blush from the way she said her old callings and her present one in a teasing, seductive manner. Both of them look at each for a few seconds and suddenly laugh out loud from them being so ridiculous at the moment. After dinner, the two had cleaned up the dishes and decided to wait for the Bakugos family. It was 8:15 on the clock, and Mina just got a text from Mitsuki saying that they will be home an hour and a half. With both preteens planning on waiting for them, Mina came up with an idea for a pastime, watching a movie. Hey Isa, do you want to watch a movie? Mina asked the boy sitting next to her on the couch. Sure, you picked the movie, Izuku responded. As Mina sat down on the floor looking for a quick movie to pull out, as Izuku whistled and had some in-thought discussion with himself. How can I increase my strength and power without losing speed and mobility? Izuku asks himself, because sooner or later he will pick up mass from all the body weight training he does in the woods, and the only way to come back that would be to increase the cardio endurance training, to start running every morning about an hour early before he has to get up, which would leave him with a lot of time to shower, eat breakfast, and overall get ready for school. But he still had a couple of months before he would have to go through a no-carb diet to help control his mass. Izuku was disrupted by a loud aha, so the young lad decided to get out of his thoughts and pay attention to the girl before him. Mina had a movie in her hand, more specifically a romance genre one. Izuku just smiled and gestures her to put the disc in. As Izuku turned off the lights to see the screen display at its finest, while seeing the only girl in the living room now on the couch, who also gesturing the boy to sit next to her. As the Hanma sat down, the movie began. After an hour full of dramatic scenes, romance, and some comedy, Izuku felt a weight on his left shoulder. It was Mina. She had fallen to slumber for the night, but the boy did not know that. At this point, Izuku was deciding on either taking the acid user to her shared bedroom with the explosive user or have her there sleeping on his shoulder. Deciding not to wake her up, Izuku just lost in thought as the movie continued. 15 minutes later. The movie was at an end credits, and after focus on his training plans, he looked back down at the girl who simply just used him as a pillow, but the boy did not mind at all, not even in the slightest. Though the young Hanma was rather dozing off and on in the dark as the movie ended with Izuku touring off the DVR, as well as the television, and eventually the need of slumber had overcame him. The boy fell asleep with his head tilted to the left on top of the girl's head for the night. It has been a week since the first day of middle school, and the green-haired lad has not gotten used to his new training schedule with the added cardio in the morning and so weight training at school. Every day brings a familiar, unpleasant feeling when he wakes up in the next morning that lasts throughout the day, soreness. Although during his training it turned into a sweet sensation that he grew to enjoy. The only hard part of the training was trying to unlock his endorphins to increase his pain tolerance and improve all his physical attributes. At school so far, no one has tried to attempt on doing anything to Izuku, but still got a few unpleasant looks from the Katsuki's group that bullied him and Mina back in the day. Izuku was at chemistry when he overheard something. Those local gangs are not letting up with their authority, are they? A conversation between 3 of the Hanma's classmates. Yeah, dude, they even started charging local stores 5 times the amount they usually make. To Izuku, this was an interesting topic and questioned himself, can he take the matter in his own hands, but still unsure of his own strength, but then push the thought out and continued to pay attention to the conversation. The heroes cannot do anything about because they can only patrol and arrest them on sight of doing a crime. What about authorities? Can they do anything? No, if anything, the most they can do is stay by the property for a few hours before being called to another activity. Izuku spent Monday through Wednesday gathering whereabouts of the local troublemakers by asking around town, while avoid asking the authorities to not raise suspicion. The boy would leave at his free period and spend 40 to 50 minutes scouting around town. It turns out that the gang is hanging out by a nightclub in the outskirts of town and decided to make a confirmation that Wednesday night. After training to warm up himself for some act that many would call reckless, risky, stupid, or just crazy, the boy went home and decided that he must make sure his identity was concealed to avoid being recognized. He looked all over his room and found a bandana and some dark clothes that make stealth a bit easier to do. Before he left the room, he got some fingerless gloves for slight protection for his hands, but in reality, if he got injured there, it would be noticeable to his family. 30 minutes later. Upon approach the nightclub, he went around and double-checked all entrances and exits present on the outside of the building. At a distance, the green-haired ninja, as Izuku thought about his appearance and his actions to find it awesome, was waiting to find a gang member and use he or she. Not trying to be sexist, he hoped it was a man since if they used their quirks, that would be a bit easier to deal with than those of the opposite gender. Although sadly Izuku had jinxed himself as he saw few cars pulled up by the club. One car had a Viper decay across both sides of the sedan, while the other had a Cobra decay on the roof of the SUV. Izuku waited patiently for an opening, but there were many individuals that were, that's right, females. Man, why did I have to jinx it? Izuku thought with some regret, but he can't go back now, not empty-handed. All of these women were wearing leather jackets that had an anaconda-looking snake, but had some subtext under the picture Titanoboa. The gang made their way inside as Izuku followed with 20 steps behind them in a couch position. As the lady snakes made their way inside, a bodyguard came outside, which made Izuku stop and move to the alleyway, peering his head to see the bodyguard was carrying an assault rifle. At this moment, the boy was having concerns for how is he going to get out of this without being shot, but hit himself mentally and physically to snap himself of it. Come on, get S grip, you're already her, might as well get over with it, he thought. After a couple of minutes of searching another way in, the young Hanma found a ventilation system that he can crawl into. He opens the vent with caution and decides to put up his hood from his skinny hoodie and pull up his bandana as he mentally preparing himself, but nothing could have prepared for what he was about to see tonight. As he made his way through the limited space of metal, he saw through the air conditioning layers of what was inside, and it shocked him. Male strippers and slaves doing this against their will, as one was forced to do the snake lady's bidding. One was being hit with what looks to be a steel-bladed whip that cut through his skin with every hit as he screams for her to stop, but every time he begged, the hits became harder, fiercer, and deadlier. Another one was receiving a stomping on his genitalia with barbed wire boot being the weapon against him. You can hear his shouts and cries for mercy, but that did not stop the relentless stopping. And lastly, which was a gagged man that was in front of a hole, but only small enough to fit an object, but caused Izuku more clearly at the man. Hanma saw a man with a rope attached to his manhood with the other, and a brick that would seem to weigh about 20 pounds in front of the same hole, with mere millimeters away from falling inside. A woman came into view as she caressed the man's abdomen and his lower body. As she said, "It's like water under the bridge." This caused the male to freak out and cried, but was muffled by the rag tied around his face, specifically his mouth area. The woman raised her right foot on top of the brick and simply smirked as she tipped the brick down the hole. The fall was endless. By the time the brick reached the bottom, so did the man. You could hear the tear by his groin and his muffled cries. All of this made Izuku vomit and started to freak out. What the fuck is going on, he thought to himself. The boy did not think it would go this far, but he was so damn wrong. After regaining what bearings he had left, he pushed forward into the vent as he met a crossroads. To the left, music can be heard with the volume blast to the maximum, and to the right was people chatting about something, so Izuku made his way to the right following the voices. As he reaches the next room, he noticed that it became quiet, too quiet, and decided to pause for a few moments. The young infiltrated boy had felt something around his left ankle while hearing a SSSSS sound. Hanma quickly looked back to see a snake's tail coming from the holes of the vent. Suddenly, Izuku felt so much force and tension from the tail that being pulled down from it broke the bottom layer of the vent that was holding him. Coming close to the ground, Izuku caught himself with hands landing first into a handstand push-up positive. While his legs were in the air, he attempted to heel kick the tail by smashing it against the ground, although he was not fast enough since the tail let go off his grasp. Izuku knew he was in deep trouble, but had to remain calm, but it did not help at what he was looking at the second he looked up attack his attacker. A woman. A woman with hair for snakes, just like that one pro hero, but the difference is the snake colors are different. The hero had blonde hair for snakes, this one had dark red. Her lower body was the snake's tail that grabbed the boy not too long ago as she left it around her, just waiting to use it. With her white skin and her red lips were the only thing that was sane for the boy. But when looking into her eyes, Hanma couldn't move at all. He was paralyzed with fear, despair, helpless, and the worst part, suicidal. "What brings you here, young boy?" the gorgeous snake lady said. Izuku was at a loss for words and thought process, so he said his answer very simple: "To stop your gang," spoke the boy with a fearful tone, as if he was soon approaching a nightmare. "Oh, now that's cute. A little boy cub thinks he can take on the queen of snakes. You know, since you went through the effort to get in here and try to stop my gang's activities, since I heard you vomit not too long ago, I will give you 3 choices. A. Join my gang to prove yourself to be useful, otherwise I will personally punish you like the dogs you saw earlier. B. Leave now while I am in a pleasant mood and never try to intervene again. Or C. Challenge me to a fight. If you defeat me in combat, then you can have your way with me in any way you want it to be. Those are your only choices." Izuku was scared about the outcome if he had to fight, because he was going to stop her from harmful this town. So he said the one thing that made his night worse: "I choose C." He exclaimed, and he was bracing himself for hell itself. One moment, she was there 20 feet in front of him, now right in front of his face. The boy tried to block the knee towards his sternum, but couldn't stop it. Knees fell to the ground as the boy was focused on trying to catch his breath, but was cut short with chop to his neck, just above the Adam's apple, which made the Hanma breathless. Not breathing was hard enough as it is until he felt his feet being tied to each other by the lady's tail and was lifted, leaving the weak boy defenseless and upside down. Izuku then attempts to brace himself for the fury of her punches towards his ribs. Coughing up blood now from the relentless attacks, Izuku let one of the punches connect as he maneuvered his upper body towards right arm, leaving her into a hold that can snap the elbow with one move. This gave a silver lining for the boy, because he saw an opening her face. If he can just get one of his legs out of the tail's grasp, then he can heaven heel kick the shit out of her face. Struggling to get out of the tail, the lady snake saw the young cub was up to something and decided to dislocate her shoulder so it wouldn't get in the way of her kicking the young boy's ass. He thought he had gained some upper hand, but he was proven wrong when hearing and felting the dislocation, because he knew that himself was only up to her elbow, as he figured it out too late that was intentional to disconnect the shoulder. As he felt, a kick to his face was so heavy that it gave the young boy a concussion. Before anything else, he witnessed a sick grin on the woman's face. Pain. Pain is all. Pain is all the boy felt. Being slammed around for the next 10 minutes by a huge tail was the worst pain he had in a long time. He was banged against many objects, from walls, tables, ceiling, floor, and the chair that the snake sat in when he first entered. Occasionally, the woman would drop the stultified boy on the ground to see if he had the balls to get up again. Once he did, another 10 minutes of being flailing around like a rag doll would continue. This went on for a whole hour, and Izuku was left with few severe broken bones, many fractures around his body, an uncountable amount of bruises. As he laid there beaten to a pulp by the snake woman before him, who was now sitting on her throne staring at the green dull eyes the young boy possessed. All he found was torture throughout his body as he tried to move, but keep his eyes at the blood reds that his opponent holds. "You are some cub, aren't you? Not many can barge into here with a noble reason to stop us, yet you, a little baby pup with no real experience with fighting, still chose to push forward even when your body tells you not to." This Izuku made him halt his effort to get up and pondered, what is she up to now? Is she going to kill him for finding out about this place and challenging her? The next few words gave Izuku a relief, but a certain amount of surprise from her. "I will spare you, pup, and may I ask what is your quirk, because I don't think you activated it during the beatdown, so I am curious." Izuku immediately responded with shock. "I do not have one, miss." The boy yelled out his quirkless nature as he shut his eyes, expecting the worst, once he felt the tail wrap around his body and lifted him up to her face with eye level. "Open your eyes, kid. I am not going to do anything to you unless you ask for it." Willingly open his eyes to meet the woman's eyes full of pity. "You must have a rough life, didn't you?" she asked as the boy just nodded with his face looking down. "The reason I ask is because I am a rare example of dual quirk individual." and one quirk allows me to change some of my human appearance to snake ones like my legs and my hair. While I transform, I gain a massive boost in all physical capabilities. Another power I possess is real stead to all my senses. I can feel the essence of someone, more specifically their quirk essence. And while I was busy pummeling you, I noticed that I cannot feel any essence coming from you. So I felt I need to ask if you had a quirk or not. So there. The woman explained. While this was happening, the boy was amazed by her being a dual quirk individual, since she likely got one or a combination of a quirk from her parents, while the other one can manifest over time of their life. So what now? The boy had to ask the lady. Well, I can somewhat heal you, but you'd still be in pain through my healing process, and you can leave and challenge me again someday for the hope of me dispersing my gang. Otherwise, I can leave you here where my members would like to use you to their heart's content. Another choice given to the young boy, but there was another easy answer to give. I'll choose to fight you again one day, miss. Nagas Medusa, she responded, and asked, what is your name, pup? Izuku Hanma, Miss Medusa. The young boy responded as he looked at her eyes as she looked at his a night full of experiences that he could never forget, even he wanted to. The healing session was hell. The process was really slow and Izuku had to relive all the damage he had sustained from his beatdown from Nagas. Nagas tilted his head to the right, exposing the skin on his neck to his shoulders since his outfit was torn in some places, and this happened to be one of those places. The young pup was getting nervous when he saw her moving her head to the exposed neck and leaning her mouth, there showing her fangs of a serpent. One moment he felt a pinch, but then he felt an unbearable pain that left him shouting out loud as the women embraced him, because she knew this method required her neurotoxin that affects the pain receptors, so she can use her venomous liquid that she can manipulate as one of the benefits for having a snake quirk to heal all the wounds by making all the blood cells to work 10 times more faster by removing dead blood cells, repair bone marrow, and fix his worn-out muscles. But it would be slow process. After an hour of shouting of the love of agony, Mercy the boy was left physically healed but mentally tired. Let me get you outside, Nagas said as she picked up Izuku with her arms and left to the ordinary club room, as many female gang members saw the tired boy's face since his hood was ripped in half and his bandana was lost in the wreckage in the other room. This left the boy to be careful off where he is looking at, because he still was not out of the woods yet with all the explicit activities going on around the lad. One of the few was walking towards Nagas, towards the boy in her arms. The lackey tried to harm the boy with a fire-type quirk, but stopped dead in front of Nagas as she looked to at a pair of blood eyes glaring into her own. This caused the rest of the gang to be in terror for some reason unknown to the tired pup. Harm him, and you die, do I make myself clear? Nagas said with a threat that was sure enough not lie, because she is the boss and judging by the other members they were terrified to see her agitated in any way. The women just stepped back and sat down on a nearby table looking down. After such an ordeal, the leader of Titanoboa took the young cub outside to get some fresh air. Izuku was tired to say the least as he was called to attention from the serpent mistress. Do you need help getting back home? She asked with concern. No, I will be all right. Thank you though. The young lad said, getting his bearings once more from the whole night ordeal. You can always come back and challenge me once more in hopes to stop me. Nagas said with a calm smile on her face as she forms back to her original form. Izuku looked up and saw her. She was nightmare dressed like a daydream with her wavy light red hair, just like, and her eyes were a light ruby color lighter than caution. In this form, there was no terror nor calamity present, just a patient and invidious pretty face that was hiding something from the world. Thanks, Miss Medusa. The boy said, blushing at his own thoughts, which caused a chuckling from the women before him, then heard her say, just call me Nagas, I am not that old nor am I formal. She said with a smile towards the boy because deep down she is curious about this pup to see if he can become stronger. Well, Nagas, thank you for the chance to fight you as well as helping me recuperate my wounds, and I will fight you again someday. But before I leave, may I ask you a question? Naga's eyebrows raised and nodded to hear him out before he leaves. Why do you cause trouble for the town? And why do you have to be so abusive to the men in the nightclub? Izuku asked the women before him. One, that was 2 questions, and 2, to answer your questions. I trouble the town, more specifically certain stores in there that carried family relations to the men in the nightclub because they became in debt to me money-wise, or just made us rub the wrong way, so having them work at a club where they have zero power for a certain amount of time would pay off that debt of both poverty and punishment if they have no family to help them pay it off. As for families that own stores, they can decide to help pay off the debt or not. But if they choose to pay off the male's debt, then they have to be obligated to pay huge amounts of yen just so the debt can be removed more quickly. She explained to the curious boy. Izuku knew what Naga's was doing was wrong, violently hurting men and emotionally harm families, but he did not have the power to back up his ideals. Not yet. As he made his way home, he checked his watch. 3:45. He was going to be home around 4:50 if he walked, so running was the best solution. 30 minutes later. When arriving home, Izuku saw the kitchen lights on, and the only way in was the front door since the back door was always locked when evening arrived. Izuku made his towards the front door while preparing himself for the worst. As the boy reached for the door knob, the door opened before he can turn and push inward, revealing a disappointing look from his uncle. "You're way past your curfew, lad, and what made you leave at midnight anyway?" Masaru said with a dead tone that scared the boy. Izuku could handle a concerned Mina, a loud Kachin, and an overwhelmingly protective auntie, but not a disappointing look from his uncle. He is a man that Izuku highly respected, just like his aunt, but he was also the man of the house, even if he did not seem like it. As Masaru gestured Izuku to sit on the couch and wait for further demands, the young lad walked past the two girls that both seemed to hold a huge amount of concern for him, especially Mina, but surprisingly Katsuki, because she would have just yelled at him for being late, but this time she had nothing to say, but an expression easily readable. "It's probably the condition of my outfit that got them so worried. Since his hoodie has many torn parts on it to be called a hoodie, his one part of pants by the ankle to the knee is missing, looking at like it was ripped out. He had no right side of a shoe, so he was running home partially barefooted." As the young lad sat on the couch with a self-disappointing look on his face, as his uncle staring him down with eyes worry and concern, but that did not match his voice at all. "Now tell me the reason why you left dead at night and decided to come back at 4:20. His tone shocked the boy as he starts to find the words to come out. At this point, even Misuki had worried look on her face because it is so rare to find her husband angry, and whenever he enraged it would scare her, even though she is always the loud, passionate, wrathful one of the relationship. Truth be told, the aunt never had to discipline the young boy because she knew what his character by the heart was like: compassionate, gentle with others, reckless with himself, and overall very selfless. And whenever the boy did cause trouble, which is rare, her husband would always give him a talking to. The two last were with the older women in the living room looking at the young boy with worry. Mina was really concerned for him because she somewhat started to know Izuku reasons behind the hurtful session he called training, and her hand over the other by her chest. Katsuki saw this and was immediately irritated because she knew the reason behind Izuku's reckless behavior and assumes that this pink idiot is going to try and understand Izuku's logic when she has not known his real purpose for all the self-inflicting harm he does. Mina goes back to the day the green-haired boy told her the truth as she recalled what the boy had said back then after school on the rooftop a day after their dinner date. In Mina's perspective, "I need to kill the man that murdered my father. Even if he is dead, I will not rest until I kill him myself or I see the body." She remembers him saying those lines with anger that she never knew he embodies. The pink lass also remembers how she tried to rebuttal claims saying that it was stupid and that is your only reason for continuously hurting yourself. Revenge. "It is my journey, and I choose how to drive it, Mina. Once I complete my goal, then I can make peace with myself." All she could do was hear him say this in a sorry tone that he had made up his mind a long time ago. Mina was brought back to reality when she heard Uncle Masaru starting to speak again. "Lad, be honest with me, or you nor me are leaving this room until you talk right here, right now." His tone kept getting more and more uneasy for the boy as he tried to start somewhere. The green-haired nephew spoke up. "I left in the middle of the night to get stronger," he said with now sweat going down his face and trembling slightly, that only Masaru noticed. "Just tell me exactly why did you sought strength with no physical harm, but your clothes says otherwise, and there is some blood on different parts of your body. And you might as well as come clean with me and your aunt." Izuku did not know what male Bakugo meant by come clean, but explaining his state of outfit was simple enough. "I got into a fight," said the boy. The eyes of all females in the room widened, while the older males just narrowed. "With who exactly?" the man questioned. There is a gang that has been disturbing the town, and I am positive that at least you and Aunt Mitsuki know that already. The green-haired boy said with a sign. Who did you fight in that gang, lad? Masaru said as the boy gulped. I sought out the gang leader by going to their meetup in hopes of stopping their harassment of the people that are affected by them, but I was greatly outclassed by her strength and quirks. The boy said as the only person that only two people that caught on to this was Masaru and Mitsuki. They both knew that dual quirk individuals exist in our society, but less than 10,000 are recorded today. And the second thought that came to adults' mind was that Izuku fought a woman, the opposite gender that holds all the benefits of quirk possession. Then explain to me why there is a difference in physical state of your body and clothing men. Mitsuki pointed out, asking the young boy for explanation. One of her quirks was that all her physical attributes increased tremendously when she transformed into her snake form that includes healing regeneration. She healed me after my beatdown since I lost to her, but the healing process was not pretty, I can say that much. The young Hanma answered the reason why he was in fine condition. So she healed you, then what else? This time it was the explosive lass that asked the question, and the young man answered. She said, come back anytime for a fight, anytime, in hopes of stopping me, the boy said, repeating the words Nagas had told him. This left the whole family silent and knew why he went attempted to stop her. Izuku finally caught on to what he said and mentally cursed himself, only to get a relive sign and a smile from his aunt. So you did it because you wanted to stop the harassment, not just picking fights with random people, just simply get what you wanted, did you? The boy simply looked down and nodded, but in truth he did this whole act because he wanted to measure up of how much the power gap between him and quirks, and suffice to say, he was not surprised. In order to become a hero, to kill the man he wants dead, and to protect himself from all opposition, he must become even more stronger. After the whole ordeal that night, Izuku decided to take some days, 2 days, off of school and his training, and think his next course of action. Since he was still mentally drained, but physically ready, he took the time and admired his environment and surroundings in the forest where he grew up in. He wished he was more disciplined in himself, to be more of a Hanma, to be more in fact. He wondered what was Baki like when he was Izuku's age, or what would he do in this situation, but no answer came by. As the young lad walked along the riverbank that he came across one time many years back, looking at his reflection in the water. Somewhere the reflection was wavy, unreadable, and the young boy looked at the source of the shock. It was a little puppy, but to me more in fact a baby wolf. This pup was drinking from the river, minding his own business, as well as the boy across the bank. After a couple of minutes, Izuku can relate to the pup in a way. He was alone or on a very lonely road that no one can follow, only pass or cross by. It was noon and the boy decided it was enough thinking for today, so he took a nap, a long nap. Izuku opened his eyes to see Mina and Katsuki looking at him with smiles that changed his life for the better. More clearly, they were on the bright, beautiful side, and when looking back to the internal darkness, he can see the all for one, the man that changed his life for the worse. Izuku did not feel any emotion towards any side, but knew one thing: there was someone standing behind him along the thin gray line. Someone very familiar, his dad Baki Hanma. He turned to the scars he remembers before his demise, the mole by the left side of his mouth, his red long curly end hair along the blood ruby eyes he has, and the smile that only his father possessed. What path do you choose, Izuku? He said, then continue to your love and future with these two. He said this as he looks, which caused Izuku to look at the two girls that mean a lot to him, that even words cannot comprehend. Or do you choose vengeance, and forever be lost, veiled in black forever? Then looks towards all for one. You choose wisely, for the future is always uncertain. And with that, Izuku wakes up to find it evening. The boy got up and left the wilderness that was his past for now. The following week, the green-haired boy walked into class with still looks from all his classmates, but he did not care and just sat in his chair waiting for school to end today. When lunch came around, the young Hanma was leaving to the roof, but was stoked by a hand by his shoulder by certain black-haired boy. Hey Hanma, want to eat lunch together with some of us? Kirishima said as his right thumb gestured to two other guys. Izuku did not think one day with these guys wouldn't hurt. Sure, the green lad said. Cool, let me introduce you to them. Shoji, Denki, come here, meet Hanma. The pair walked closer to the green and black-haired boys, while simply saying, hey, nice to meet you, the blonde one said, and another hello, the six-armed tall boy said as well. Hi, Izuku greeted back as Kirishima said with joy, now on ward to lunch, as the four boys made their way to the cafeteria. Izuku was not expecting anyone to socialize with him because of his quirkless nature, but he was proven wrong by Kirishima's offer, and now the lad was walking with three other boys to the cafeteria. Hey Hanma, how come you do not hang out with anyone else? The blonde known as Denki asked. I usually like to keep to myself, and besides a lot of the school knows my nature, so they hang out with defect person like me, and most of the school are girls, so it makes things more troublesome if I was around others. Izuku explained his situation to the blonde. But you should not seclude yourself in solitude because us guys gotta stay together in this world of female dominance. Kirishima spoke up. You should not say it like that, the six-armed boy responded. Then how do you call it the weak masculine age, or no hope for man, Denki retorted. You saying that like you already give up on the male gender. The one that spoke up surprised all the three boys. It was Izuku that spoke up this time, and he had a stern look on his face. No, I just sigh, I guess I am, aren't I? I mean, how can I? It's not like we are treated equal since there are more occupation that ask for females and males, and not only that there are more dropout rates for guys than girls. Said with defeat. Changing the topic to mellow out the mood, Shoji asked the boys speaking about occupations, what do you guys want to be when we're grown-ups? The mutant lad asked his peers. I want to be a mechanic, said the black-haired boy, as all of them got their food. I am planning on being an electrician myself, the blonde boy added, as all of them found a table that was open. I want to be a nurse like my mom, the tall six-armed boy chimed, as well as all of them sat down on said table. Izuku opened his mouth to say one side goal of his. I want to be a hero, Izuku said simply. Silence. No one uttered a word. In this cafeteria. At the moment as the boy said what he wanted to say, Izuku had no clue what just happened. One moment it was all loud and cheery, now it was silent and intense. The boys can feel all the stares at them and sweated a ton all on their faces except the green-haired lad. What's with the stares, ladies? Izuku asked as he looked around the cafeteria with stares of disbelief, disgust, disdain, and deplorably. One voice spoke up that was familiar yet unpleasant to the boy. So the quirkless peasant wants to be a hero now? Uraraka was the one who spoke up, causing her group of friends to look at the boys, sending glares at the only boy who was talking. Yes, what of it, Uraraka-san? The boy asked another question towards the gravity princess. You realize you need a quirk in order to do that profession, right? She asked with a smug on her face. I don't need power to save someone from harm's way, Hanma answered simply. The group of boys look at Izuku with respect and fear that may happen to him. Before anything else happened, said boy jumped out of his seat away from the chair that was now crushed to the ground. Uraraka used her gravity manipulation quirk to attempt at harming the boy. At this point, all three boys that were sitting were starting to be affected by the gravity change, and it was just difficult to get off their chairs. Izuku saw this and darted a look at the brown-haired girl with her hand in front of her. Undo your gravity, now, Uraraka-san. The green boy shouted at the bob hairstyle lass. Or what? She implored back. Otherwise I will have to fight you, he said calmly, fully aware of his position, and no amount of negotiating can solve this problem because the girl would be make impossible to handle, with 7 years taught him that. Izuku just had a focused expression on his face as he walked up to the girl that were harming the other lads during their mealtime. Izuku was staring eye to eye with the lass in front of him. Izuku only had a certain amount of time before she would use her powers on him, so he made the first hit to the face. To say the least, the punch did not connect because Uraraka manipulates the gravity around the boy to make the hits he gave became soft air, hitting the target, not the fist itself, but the fact that he managed to get to her face was really the thing that surprised all the girls with the act of defiance the boy displayed in front of them in the room. Izuku goes for right high kick to her shoulder, but it suddenly became a feint for a 360 elbow slam to her collarbone, which it did connect. Now flinch and livid, Uraraka made her attempt to use her quirk on the boy's clothing, making them several times heavier by attempting to grab him. The young martial artist saw this and used the bottom of his wrist to deflect her hand downward while raising said wrist to hit her chin with the top of his wrist, all the while calling out Shugen. This was one of his techniques that helped block close quarters attacks within hand's reach or parry grabs. He managed to create said technique during one of his shadow boxing sessions. The bob-haired girl fell back on the ground, holding on to her chin with her unharmed hand. At the moment the girl fell back, The gravity that was upon the boys was now gone, and all of them stood up and looked at the scene. Izuku had won this little disagreement. Izuku stood up straight and looked at the fallen girl before him and simply said, "Do you want to continue?" He honestly did not want to, but knowing the pride that girls had these days, a second chance to redeem herself would not hurt at all, but her, and only her. The gravity lass and looked up at the boy in disbelief. This is not the same boy she would bully all those years ago. No, this was someone different somewhere from her, and then he had changed. Mina POV. Is that really Izuku? She thought to herself, witnessing the whole exchange from the far side of the cafeteria. She was worried that the boy would have any injuries attained from one of their childhood bullies. Before anything else happened, one of the adults came in shouting what happened. It was one of the teachers for the upperclassman. The man looked at Izuku, who had his back towards him, only paying attention to the girl in front of him. At this point, the pink girl made her way towards the green-haired boy. By the time she reached to the group of boys, she noticed that Izuku had not removed his sights from Uraraka. Then said boy asked something to her, "Do you still want to continue, or not, Uraraka-san?" The fallen girl looked at the boy in disbelief from what the boy was asking and was speechless thanks to the young martial artist's display of moves against her. Mina couldn't help but feel worried and happy for Izuku because he stood up to their bully to protect the other boys that were involved because of the new associate they invited to their table. But Mina felt worried how he was acting. She never saw him fight before and jumped to the conclusion that he would want to pay the gravity girl back for all of those years publicly humiliating him and the pink girl, physically assaulting him with her quirk, and overall make him a target for others. The pink girl ran in front of the boy with her arms stretched out, facing her back to the girl on the ground, and looking at the boy, she grew so feelings for in his serious green eyes. "Izuku, stop. Please, that's enough." Mina pleaded as she was now shaking a bit since Izuku had not changed his expression at all. Izuku POV. Izuku broke her collarbone in one hit and sprained her wrist with the fact that she was on the ground and he was standing felt good to the boy. Young Hanma liked this feeling of self-accomplishment for winning, but needed to remember his purpose. His new friends were in trouble, and he had to step up. His thoughts were interrupted by a familiar voice calling to him, "Izuku, stop. Please, that's enough." The boy looked at the source, which led him to see a pink concerned/scared girl in front of him. "What's with the look, Mina?" he asked. He saw the pink-haired lass pause for a moment to find her words or reason. "I am worried about you, you know. And do not continue any further, otherwise you will regret it." Mina, now shaken with what she said as the girl looked at the slightly risen eyes of the boy. In a split second, the boy, couple meters away from Mina, had picked up said girl in bridal style and jumped away from the spot they were originally at, followed by a loud crushing sound on the floor. Mina shrieked in surprise as the boy held a calm demeanor, not keeping his eyes off the gravity girl while holding on to his best friend. When landing on the ground, Izuku set Mina down, but she did not let go of him as she looked at him, but he knew Mina was looking at him, but Izuku only had his attention of the attacker, which was Uraraka. Mina diverted her attention towards the gravity girl to see a crushed and cracked floor where she was once standing, as if a heavy object had landed on the same spot repeatedly without rest. Uraraka held an angry expression on her face because of how the boy managed to react fast enough to get him and the pink girl out of the way. Izuku now had a wrath build up in him. It was one thing that he would get hurt, he can accept that, but with his best friend Mina almost harmed Izuku, just couldn't let it slide anymore. Mina could feel Izuku tensed up with all the muscles contracting without doing anything from the outside perspective from forearm to his shoulders and his right arm that she was holding on to. This scared her even more. She did not know what to expect when she looked back to him. His eyes says it, all full of wrath that Mina saw as she looks at him wide-eyed, as did Uraraka. Once angry, now downright scared off her victim just by looking at his full green forest eyes that were once filled with light. Izuku used such swift to release himself from Mina's grasp without hurting her and sprinted towards the gravity lass. As he got closer, the girl can barely get off the ground, and to Izuku's advantage, he jumped and did a front flip and aerial drop kick towards her abdomen. The attack landed, causing the wounded girl to cough up blood and scream in pain as she tries to fix herself, but only made things worse when she tried to lighten her own weight, causing the blood to vomit out even more. Izuku landed on the floor this time with an unsatisfied feeling of anger and got up slowly and walked towards the girl that was on the floor crying for it to end. Please have mercy on me. She pleaded, barely audible with all the blood coming out of her mouth. Mercy? Mercy? You want fucking mercy? Where was Mina's mercy for all these 7 years? You hurt her during our childhood multiple times, just like what you're doing right now. You want get your mercy? No, you will only get suffering. All of these thoughts ran through Izuku's head, but he just remembered that he was only being selfish about this. It was his fault for letting his best friend keep getting hurt because of his weakness throughout their childhood years. The boy finally calmed himself back to reality and simply said this to the fallen girl. Apologizes, then you have my mercy. The boy demanded the injured girl. I am sorry, Izuku-han, don't apologize to me. Apologize to Mina. He said coldly. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to Mina. Izuku said coldly at the fallen girl. Uraraka was confused until she looked at the girl a few meters away from them, who had a confused expression as well. The gravity girl heard Izuku slowly making his way over to her and slowly towers over her. Why? Why do you want me to apologize to her? She questions while clutching her stomach. In a sudden moment, said girl felt a hand on her throat and slowly being lifted up. What did I say? Apologize to Mina, otherwise you won't have my mercy. And with that being said was followed by a helpless girl crying out of fear as she looked into the boy's eyes. Eyes that held so much wrath and agony that she was going to be a part of. I am sorry, Hanma. The girl got a tightened grip to her throat. You know, for a highly self-centered bitch that only cares about Quirk's benefits and strength, you have a hard time following orders, don't you? The boy said with such malice that all the females that can easily topple over him were scared to their boots, and the boys, well, they downright look up to the green-haired lad because he displayed courage that none of them hoped to achieve. Around the scene, a certain explosive girl was frightened of the events that transpired recently. This was not the same Izuku that she had bullied and grown up with. This was someone else. Katsuki walked up to the scene and was noticed by both conflicted boy and wounded girl. Katsuki, here to help your friend? Izuku made more of a statement rather than a question. The girl gave the boy a no response with her head and responded to his question. I came to ask why are acting like this over a girl. This caught the boy's attention and answered coldly back. I think you know why, since you're such great friends with little Miss Helpless here. The girl had such shame in her face. A big part of her blames herself for not standing up to Izuku that day many years ago up till now. The girl even started developing feelings for said boy during his 3rd year living with family. She realized what drew her towards him, his determination to keep moving forward no matter how hard she and girls made it for him. She will admit there were times they genuinely enjoyed each other's company when she was not bullying him. But this was not the same boy she liked. This was someone more violent, cold-hearted, and cruel. Mina did not know what to process the information that was just registered. In a 2-minute span since Izuku released himself from Mina's grasp, he was there with and hand on Uraraka's tonsils with an unpleasant emotion coming from him. Then suddenly Katsuki showed up and the two were talking, but the pink girl was still confused at the moment. But when the adult in the cafeteria started walking towards the boy, she noticed it. His back had started getting wider and bigger, even though it was subtle, small, and sudden change. She had noticed its presence. Izuku was lost in his own wrath, not caring about the outside world around him, and his only focus was Katsuki and Uraraka. That is until a hand grasped his left shoulder, bringing him back to reality and looking towards the source, a man. Kid, you're coming with me to the principal's, let's go. At this moment, Izuku let down the wounded girl on the ground gently as he heard from the man speaking into his earpiece, can we get a nurse to the cafeteria? I repeat, the cafeteria. Izuku turned around to face the man. Okay, let's go, Mr. The boy said simply, and as well as complying with the man's orders. The teacher nodded and still had his hand on the boy's shoulder as he escorted said boy to the principal's office. After the two males left, the cafeteria was now rowdy, but not the good kind, saying insults and cursing the defiant boy. All until another boy stood up for his protector. At least he stoked her, unlike all of you. Kirishima said out loud, making the whole area quiet once more. All the girls looked at the black-haired kid like he was crazy. Did you see how he treated that girl? He is nothing more than a quirkless monster. A girl yelled out. And who was the one that started all of this? Yeah, all of you. What's wrong saying your goals out loud with whatever pride you have left in this unequal society? This time the blonde retorted back. He is still a nobody. How can he become a hero with no power? Another girl laughed with such smug that Denki started emitted lightning from his body. He saved us from that gravity bitch, that's what, and he saved that other girl over there. The electric quirk user pointed with his right thumb at himself and the other two boys and pointed his left index finger at Mina. You all want to be someone great, but you only think about yourselves. This time it was Shoji that yelled his exclaim. All the three boys and the rest of the female body looked at each other with such anger. Mina and Katsuki had enough of this and decided to head to the principal's office, but not enjoying each other's company walking together was something they can deal with if they can see their crush. The females and the few males noticed this and decided to get in their way. Katsuki's group stoked the explosive girl with a question from Momo. Where are you going? Do you not see that Uraraka is in pain right now and needs us? And Mina's group of friends stop her with a somewhat simple question. Where are you going, Mina? Both explosive and acidic girls had one answer that meant the same thing. I am going to see Izu/Deku right now. Meanwhile, at the principal's office, Izuku was sitting in front of the principal watching the footage that was recorded not too long ago of his disagreement with the gravity victim. The TV turned off when Izuku was grabbed by the shoulder by the male teacher. Look, I know you were acting on self-defense since she attempted to harm you with her quirk, but don't you think that was a bit too much? I mean, you sprained her wrist, fractured her collarbone, and broke 5 of her ribs. The nurse stated her injuries before you got here, as well as security, sending the footage as well. Then you demanded her to apologize to another student who was almost harmed. All of this because you just answered your question to the boys about your dreams. Izuku was irritated to say the least that the principal assumes that hero work was his dream. No, that is his goal, to make a reality. But alas, that what he would expect coming from a female adult. I understand. This all Izuku can do at the moment. You're lucky that our nurse can heal her completely as good as new today, so I am giving you a warning, but after that I will inform your guardians. The principal sternly implored the green-haired boy. Yes, ma'am, says the lad as he got up and bowed. I will try my best to behave in the future. With that being said, he turned towards the door and left towards class. Along the way there, Izuku saw 2 familiar girls waiting for him to get closer. As he was a few meters away from them, he stopped as his hair shadowed his eyes. I know what I did was out of line, so I won't make an excuse for this. The boy said simply. After a few moments, said boy can hear footsteps approaching him, as well as a literal explosive slap to the left side to the face. You're a fucking idiot, you know that, Deku. You could have gotten hurt, but now you made things worse for you and Pinky here. I did not know what to do, I was too scared. At this point, Katsuki was tearing up out of fear and anger of the consequences that may fall upon her victim. Kachin, I am sorry for making you cry. The boy said softly. No. You don't get to be sorry. I should be the one to say that after all of these years. All I ever gave you was pain, but you still treat me and your bullies with respect and kindness. It fucking hurts so much when I did not stand up for you. And here you are standing up for others, even though you're the bottom of the food chain, you piece of shit. At that moment, the explosive girl was crying on the boy's chest, yelling all of her troubles to the boy she likes. No loves. Don't blame yourself for my situation and position, because I put myself there. I don't blame you at all, but I will not forget what you did to Mina. This hit both girls, because in their thoughts wondered how much does Izuku cared for the pink lass. Why can't you just worry about yourself for once in your damn life, Deku? Katsuki asked with tears still leaking out and now embracing him with her head on his chest, but could not bear to look at the boy's face. If I was selfish for my well-being for once in my life, I will leave others hurt even more because of that choice. I'd rather have myself wounded than anyone else. And besides that, not the person I would not be proud of if I did that. I already live my life with so much regret and sorrow because of my weakness to make it worse on others. This caused a silence between the three. The one thing that did bring noise was the school bell. Another voice spoke up. It's time, Katsuki, we need to head back, or we will be late. The explosive girl reluctantly agreed and let go of Izuku and decided to ran ahead of Mina to class. Mina still looks at Izuku with a sad smile and grabs his hand. Let's go, the pink girl said, causing the lad to be confused because they did not have the same class and they would have to go in the opposite direction to go to their classrooms. Go where? The green lad asked. To the roof. I want to talk to you personally with no interruptions, she said softly. Do you have last period free? The boy asked, which got a confused look from the girl. Yes, why? Then let's meet on the roof. Izuku quickly answered her question, getting a nod of acknowledgement, followed by an embrace, which the boy returned. This lasted a few minutes. See you then. Yeah. Izuku's next two classes went as usual, if you can say the constant glares of females in his class. In guitar he would try to strum, but would get hit accidentally by the head of the other guitars used by the girls. This lasted the whole period, and the teacher finally caught on about what's going on. She sent some of the girls outside, carrying buckets of water. Izuku said they did nothing wrong, so they did not have to receive the punishment. The teacher was not convinced, but she let it slide for today. Physical education class was the same thing, but with sports equipment and sports balls. Izuku would often get an insult or two every lap he ran, have equipment drop on his back when doing push-ups, get sports balls thrown at his face when doing sit-ups, and being harshly hit from the abdominal or back area, all while doing pull-ups. Izuku did not mind at all since he was so focused on training because he had to talk to Mina during his last period to get the session over with. But this time there was no adult because the field was so wide to focus on one student. So Izuku just had to bear with it. Come during the last period of the day, Izuku made his way up the stairs that led him to the roof of the school. As he walked to the door that opens to his resting spot, he saw it was cracked open. The lad pushed the door outward to find himself looking at the pink lass before him standing in the middle of the rooftop. "Hey, Mina," greeted softly, looking at the boy in the eyes. "Hey, Mina," Izuku greeted back with the same action, but only moving forward to her when they are about 5 yards away from another. "So what do you want to talk about?" the boy asked genuinely with a concerned look on his face. "I came to ask you were okay from She responded back. "Yeah, I am okay, but did she hurt you before I picked you up?" he asked, worried for the girl's sake since she got caught in the middle of his disagreement with the gravity girl earlier. "I am fine, but I want to know if you are still upset with what happened." This gave a silence for a few moments until the boy spoke up. "I will be lying if I said I was not. I am still upset of how the guys and you got endangered, and I did not solve the situation the way I wanted to." At the moment, Mina thought back when Izuku turned the tables on Uraraka by hitting her with moves that Mina did not think Izuku would possess, then demanded the wounded girl to apologize to Mina. "What made you act like that? I mean, you suddenly telling her to apologize to me." Izuku only wanted to avoid this type of question because to him it was some excuse to punish their bullies, but knowing Mina, she would just press the matter if it was trying to elude from her, so reluctantly the boy answered her question. "I got mad at myself for letting you get endangered again. All these 7 years I was never once been able to protect you, because I lack a quirk which led me to be overpowered by our bullies many times, and you stayed by my side, even when you got hurt because of my presence. I trained for more than a half a decade to make the position and environment I am in better, but like today, I couldn't keep you out of harm's way once more, so my wrath got the better of me, and I ended up doing more than I intended." Izuku had his head down away from the eyes of the pink lass. A few minutes passed with nothing happening. The two kids just stand there doing nothing. After a couple more seconds, Izuku heard footsteps coming towards him. No doubt it was Mina, but he was expecting a shout of how selfish he is, or a slap to the face like earlier from Katsuki. What she did was unexpected. Izuku felt two hands softly grasping his face on both cheeks, and felt a soft pull towards her eyes. He did so willing turn to see her crying with a smile on her face. "You know, Izu, that's what I love about you. You always care for others no matter what. You always stayed by my side since the beginning, and you made me happy so many times that I want to return everything in full, but I did not know how." So here's a start. With that being said was followed by simply kiss between both curly-haired kids. Their moment lasted several minutes, not wanting to break apart. And to boost this effect, Izuku started to embrace the lass with compassion that he would always give when she was upset, but this time it meant that he would accept and return his feelings for Mina. At first was surprised by this, but soon felt calm and secure, knowing her love felt the same. Mina started to embrace Izuku even more affectionately by wrapping her arms around his neck and started to kiss more passionately. The boy caught on to this and did the same, putting more effort into the makeout session. But alas, after a couple of minutes they separate their lips, but not their bodies, and looked each other in the eyes. Izuku saw a dark space light up by golden eyes of hope that only she possessed. Mina saw a white canvas with the green forest of life in the middle, which only belonged to the boy she loved. Mina whispered. "Yes, Mina," Izuku whispered back. "I love you," Mina said with a smile full of joy and gratitude. I love you too, Izuku responded back with a smile made of happiness and genuine. 1 hour later, the two curly-haired preteens walked hand in hand, not letting go of each other. All the while a certain bob-haired girl watches at a distance as the couple leaves the school campus. The brown-haired girl gets her phone out her skirt pocket and dials a few numbers to call someone. As the other line answers the brown-haired girl's, "Oh, Katsuki, you want to know something?" The next few weeks were great for the curly-haired couple. Izuku would spend his sixth-period training and go to the woods with Mina to train some more for a few hours, and some days the boy would introduce some martial arts moves to his love as a way to do as a pastime and use for self-defense. After some afternoon training, the preteens would walk along the river bank and talk about various things from school, hobbies, or feelings about the relationship, which would end on a positive note, to small talk about weather, outfits, dates, and dinner. Or if they do not feel like being too active, then they would lie down on the grass and cuddle next to each other as they take in nature and its harmony. Upon arriving home, the Bakugo family asked why would the two of them would come home late, since it was surprising for Mina to do so than Izuku. Mina said that Izuku has been showing her martial arts and would want to keep him some company because the boy would come home late in the evening. The adults did not ask further questions, but felt like something was going on between the two. Katsuki, though, had gone distant with her two childhood victims. Only Mina noticed this, but Izuku thought maybe she's back to same old self again. Katsuki would catch the two always talking in Izuku's room or sometimes in the living room. This bothered the girl ever since she got that call from Uraraka a few weeks back. "Hey Katsuki, you want to know something?" She should have just hung up that day, but sooner or later she was going to find out anyway. Seeing Izuku laugh was heartfelt within itself. His smile was so warm every time the explosive will feel a combustion in her chest. Those emerald eyes that have so much life and was a sight to see. And his personality carried so many traits that not even the most powerful Quirk today can beat. All of these qualities the boy has are all for the pink girl to enjoy. This brought so much envy for the sandy blonde girl that some days she would lash out her frustrations on personal belongings. This was not healthy for her and her roommate Mina. Since Mina would come late with Izuku, this gave the nuclear girl a couple hours to cope with her faults. She knew one of these days Mina will speak up about her relationship with Izuku, but knew the pink girl thought it would be a bad time to say something. Present time. "Hey Pinky," the explosive lass spoke up as she lays on her bed, facing away from the acid girl's bed. "Yes, Katsuki?" Mina responded, taking her eyes off a book to look at the explosive girl. "You and Deku, are ye know a thing now?" Katsuki needed to hear it from her roommate herself. "Me and Izu." Mina did a reluctant sigh and continued, "Yes, we are. Is there something on your mind?" The acid girl asked, concerned with where this conversation is going. "Yes, there is, but it is not that easy to say to the both of you," Katsuki said with a more sad tone. "Well, what's the matter? If it's too hard to say it to me or Izu, then there is Uncle Masaru and Annie Misuki," Mina said, trying to give the lass more options to deal with her issues. "But if I get father and mother involved, then they would just tell me to talk to you guys about it." Katsuki responded, "Well, I am all ears, and if you want I can bring in Izu to try to make the situation a bit better for you." The pink lass attempting to reassure the explosive lass. "No, I need to tell you this first since it would be harder to talk to Deku. So for the next few moments, can you just listen?" The lass got a sure from her roommate as a gesture to talk. "For the longest time I have loved Izuku for who he is and what he stands for. Ever since he started training to achieve a goal that seems so far away and dangerous to follow through, I began to wonder if I can be helpful to him. That day when he first met my group, the same day he met you, deep down I hoped that he would get accepted even as a servant to the other girls no matter how low he become, but that was not how I planned it. He carries a burden that only he wants to shoulder and tries his best to keep us out of it. But deep down I wanted to confess my feelings for him, so maybe he can understand that I don't want him going down the road of solitude. I was too late when I ran away from him a few weeks ago after the fight he had with Gravity Bitch. After school I heard news about you too, and it surprised and hurt me. I was surprised that you got him to love you. I was hurt when I realized that I did not act it sooner." The explosive lass fell silent after that. Within a couple minutes the acid girl decided to speak up. "I feel the same way for Izuku. To me he is my hero, my savior, my knight in shining armor, And for a while I hoped these feelings would one day reach him ever since he defended my safety from you and the others. I know about Izuku's goal, his revenge, but I cannot stop him. He made up his mind a long time ago. Even though I do not agree with this path he is following, he has always stayed by my side, even when I was the reason for his injuries and wounds. So what else can I do? I know the path he is following is dangerous, but all I can do right now is support him and love him for who he really is. Sometimes I did doubt he ever did harbor the same feelings, but in truth he did also, but not just me, but for the both of us. Although, as it turns out, he did not want to have us get involved in his life in any way, especially his goal. Fearing for the worst, Isa decided to hold back his love for us, since if he chose one, he would hurt both anyway. He would hurt the one he rejected, but the other would suffer in the long run. Deep down, his was worried for us and decided that he must focus on his goals in order to protect us from what he might become. But in spite of all of that, I still managed to give Izuku to my love, and he returned it wholeheartedly. I am sorry you were hurt by us. All I can say is that you will find your happiness someday, Katsuki. And with that, Mina finished and got up from her bed, leaving a silent but hurt girl with something boiling up inside her. Meanwhile, Izuku at the moment was practicing a new techniques that would help him offensively. This new move, as he would call it, the full force punch, or FFP. In a normal punch, most of the generated force comes from your arms to your shoulder and upper back. A more powerful punch would rely on using most of your body in motion in the direction of the punch. That's put your body behind it punch. Although the punch that the young grappler is trying to perform is a blow that requires all of the force that is generated by the whole body. By contracting the back and tighten the core that keeps the power flow passable to the punch. The next step is contract all the muscles in his body the exact moment the punch makes contact with something or someone. This will boost the amount of force generated from different parts of the body, giving more power to the punch. The third and final step is don't miss. The boy had been practicing this move for a couple of hours in his room just to get the form done, leaving him sweating like he was sprinting for miles on end. He left his shirt and pants off, trying to not add more clothes in the hamper, leaving him in his boxers. He trained continuously until there was a knock on the door, to which he replied, "Be right there." After getting on his sweatpants and a neck on, he quickly made his way to the door to find a certain sandy blonde girl outside. "Hey, Izuku." This greet surprised the boy. It has been so many years since she called him by his first name, so felt this was something important and decided to do the same form of greeting. "Hi, Katsuki. What's up?" To which the boy got a quick response. "Can we talk in here, please?" And the boy simply nodded and gestured her to come in. As Katsuki came inside, Izuku closed and locked the bedroom door so eavesdropping can take place and sat down in front of his childhood bully. "So what's on your mind?" Izuku asked. 2. The explosive girl was having trouble finding her voice to speak to infatuation in front of her. "Hey, Katsuki, it's alright, take your time." The green-haired boy. After a few moments, the explosive girl walked up to the now confused green boy and embraced him. "I wanted to tell you this for so long, but I never had the courage to do so." The boy's eyes widened with shock as he felt lips pressed against his. "I love you, Izuku, so please stay with me," she whispered in his ear. The next few minutes felt so long for the both of them, and then the boy spoke up. "I am sorry, Katsuki, I can't stay with you," Izuku said with such guilt and shame that he hurt one of his loved ones. "Why? Why? Please tell me why." Katsuki was tearing up with sadness on Izuku's shoulder. "It is because you spent your time trying to take me away from my goal, Katsuki, rather than accept it as it is and support or ignore me." This caused the girl's eyes to widen with surprise. "How long you have known?" the lass asked. "Ever since I told you my goal," the boy responded with such regret of even telling her in the first place, but he trusted her all those years ago and even now. "That day you stayed with your friends rather helped me. Sure, it would have been your pride that got in the way at the time, but now you don't even like hanging out those girls. You only stayed with them to try and stop me from reaching something you don't understand," Izuku said with such anger. "You spent 7 years trying to teach me to know my place in society, but you failed over and over and over again." The boy continued, "Not once have you accepted me, for I am all you love about me is my deeds to stand up for others. You and I have different ideals and philosophies on the world around us, but I at least acknowledged yours." The boy has stopped his frustration and fell silent once more. "Is this because you love Mina more than me?" Katsuki said as she grabbed his cheeks and looked him dead in the eyes. What does Mina have to do with this? The boy asked, not looking forward to what comes next. Because you have always been together since you first met. The girl said with such envy, even the boy caught on to this. Tell me, why do you love her more than me? What's so great about her anyway? The boy could not respond right away. He was so surprised about how his bully just confessed to him and now is mad at him for not returning the same affection for her. Mina has always been by my side since the day we first met, and she is truthful with me from the start. She is my first honest friend in my life, which grew me to love her as well as you, but it was a couple years after you and I met. She let me be beside her, defend her, and love her no matter my defect nor gender. The boy said to the girl in front of him. So you mean to say that she reached your heart first? She asked. This caused the boy to nod. Okay, I understand now. Katsuki gripped the boy's shoulder and leaned for his neck and started biting him, causing the boy to breathe out. Katsuki stopped. Izuku grabbed the explosive girl's shoulders and pushed her away from him. Izuku was on his back and Katsuki on her end, rubbing her lower back, but quickly made her way towards the boy. The green-haired boy saw this and quickly did a kick up to make his way out of the room, but was grappled by the waist and brought down. Stop, Katsuki, said the Hanma, but only got one thing in return: explosions. Katsuki was on top of Izuku with a tattered shirt that showed his toned four-pack, and the girl had blush on her face, but moved in, ignoring the boy's pleas and warnings, and started to explosively undress him by blowing the rest of the shirt off and parts of his pants. At this point, his exposed chest and abs are shown, and parts of his hips, and some parts above his crotch. The explosive was about to reach in for the boy's genitals, with her mouth slowly opening as she gets closer. The boy had enough of this and decided to punch the girl's liver to slow her down and threw her off of him. Izuku was angry at this point because of how Katsuki tried to have sex with him, as he would not prefer to use the word rape since he had power to get out of it with force, but decided that he would try to convince her, but now that was out of the question. Katsuki, that's enough. This snapped the girl's attention to the boy with glares that scared her. What's wrong with you? The boy demanded. It took a couple of minutes to get a response from Katsuki, but eventually the boy got one. I wanted you to love me. I wanted you to take me into your warmth as you embrace me. I wanted you to give me the same affection as you give her. Izuku did not know what to think at this point, but he somewhat calmed down and told her how he felt. I do love you, but not in the same way I love Mina. And I am sorry you were hurt by us like this, by me. If it helps. Izuku walked up to the girl and hugged her, not affectionately, no, a simple hug to help the explosive girl. I will never abandon you or her, because I want to see my goal to the end, and after that I can live in peace with you guys. After Izuku said his piece, Katsuki spoke up with a determined tone, then I will not give up on my love for you. And I will do whatever it takes to win your heart. The boys widened, but a genuine smile appeared on his face as he said, thanks for forgiving me, Katsuki. But he did not hear the last few words the explosive lass said. A smile crept onto the girl's face that looked like a nice, forgiving smile, but really it was a sinister, greedy, and prideful one that masked its own presence from the boy. No problem, Izuku, the girl said with a plan in mind and motion, but for now she wanted the boy to enjoy his moment of acceptance and understanding. 1 hour later. After dinner, Mina was cleaning the dishes until a certain someone got her attention. Hey Mina, this caused the girl to look behind her to find a melancholy look from the sandy blonde girl. Hey Katsuki, the pink lass responded, then continued, what's up? Mina asked. Well, I was wondering if you and I can talk for a bit outside. The explosive lass. Okay, the pink girl replied. As Mina finished the dishes, she followed Katsuki through the back door and sat down on the outdoor dining set the Bakugos family had. Katsuki did the same, and after a couple of minutes she spoke up. I want Izuku for myself, so back off, Pinky. This surprised the pink lass, but quickly turned into irritation. Excuse me. Izuku, a boy who always had something on his mind, would it be training to be stronger every day? Friends, 4 boys that chat with him during lunch and class, family the Bakugos, and his lover/best friend Mina. All of these thoughts hold many positive emotions, from companionship and respect to love and security. All of this was achieved by the hardship he had experienced. He had to endure 7 years ago. And from time to time, said boy would question his branch of fate all those years ago. The what if ranged from many different possibilities. What if he did not train to kill his one and only goal? What if he never got to meet Mina? Who would she be today? What if he never met Misuki at the hospital? What if he never got his quirk taken from him? What if his father never died and won that fateful battle? All of these what-if theories left the young boy with some half-ass answers, mainly because he did not want to finish the conclusion for these possibilities and would want to focus more stuff at the present moment, like lunchtime with his new companions. Izuku sat on a table found on the outside campus of the school with three other boys, which were Kirishima, Denki, and Shoji. Ever since Izuku's little scuffle of defiance in the cafeteria, which cased the boys to eat in the outdoors because they would rather be around harmony with fall seasonal breeze rather than choice and the thickness of summer intensity. While truth be told, only out the four lads Izuku wouldn't mind that latter since it would benefit his training, but for the sake of not trying to endanger his new friends from the superior assaults from the girls. Hey, Hanma, Denki called Izuku's attention from his thoughts. Yes? The green-haired boy responded. I was wondering, how are you so strong? I mean, you said you were quirkless, didn't you? The blonde-haired boy asked. I just train is all. After the Hanma answered the boy's question, another statement came up. But what kind of training do you do, because you clearly wrecked Urarakusen a few weeks ago? Izuku looked at the black-haired boy with shark-like teeth. I just do bodyweight training, cardiovascular exercises, martial arts, and some meditation, Kirishima. This caused Ijiro to be suspicious because, in all honesty, because Izuku did not look like a buff or strong dude on the outside of his uniform. Though he himself and the other two lads don't really have any amount of lean muscle on them, but it is kind hard to believe how a skinny-looking boy defeated a girl in hand-and-hand combat without coming out unscathed from the female's quirk. Hey, Hanma, can you stand up and take off your shirt? Kirishima asked with a focused look on his face. Izuku looked at him slightly wide-eyed, thinking for a second if he was homosexual from basically asking, can I check you out? But that would be rude of him to think poorly of, so he asked, any reason why? I just want to see if you're tone or not, because I am still having a hard time believing you went through such training and beat a girl in a fight. So yeah, and no lifting your shirt up a bit, I mean go half naked on us. And if I decline your request, I will challenge you rock, paper, scissors for it. Okay, but if you lose, you will have to take off your shirt. Izuku said with a small smile at his terms of the challenge, which made the black-haired boy gulp and prepared himself. As the two got ready to throw down their fates of a deal in a game of rock, paper, scissors, few eyes were witnessing the event. One pair red eyes looking from the second floor of her classroom, who hopes for her love's defeat to see that nice toned body of his. Another pair of yellow moons in the middle of the dark night look at the boy with a nice smile creeping on her face, seeing how Izuku never really made any other friends growing up because of quirkless nature, and the fact boys did not want to be near the bullying he had received over the years saddened the pink girl even more, but now he finally has male friends he can call companions, which brought Mina the sense of happiness and relief. Back to the game. Rock, both said. Paper, both readied. Scissors. Both shouted a bit too loud. Izuku had lost. By throwing last thing, he shouted scissors. Well, you know the deal. Lose the jacket and shirt. Kirishima said with a smirk on his face, awaiting his answers. Izuku just sighed in acceptance and defeat as he unbuttons his jacket. After removing his uniform jacket, then proceeded to take off his green shirt that said Ultimate on the front by grabbing the top by the collar part and took it off. Both Shoji and Denki were wide-eyed by how toned their green-haired friend was. He definitely was not scrawny for one. He had a legit four-pack that was unbelievably toned. His chest looked like mini stones. Both of the boy's shoulders had that tiger claw marks that help see the different muscle in his shoulder caps, a non-tone. Thanks to no affects of puberty yet. Cut was present. Then his back. It was breathtaking for the girls since the boys were looking at the front. In Katsuki's classroom had a few girls, and a group of them, which the sandy blonde girl was in. Katsuki as well as her gang we staring wide eyes with mad blushes on their faces as they stare at the young Hanma's posterior muscles. As Mina looked at his back with such sadness because though normally those muscles would make any girl excited and blush, but to look deeper past the thick muscles and visible scars was the sole purpose of his training, vengeance. Then something appeared on his backside, though only for a few seconds. The pink lass saw it clearly on his posterior side. Where his shoulder blade lies the muscles there formed into eyes, one on each shoulder blade. They looked like they were closed with only two muscles making the eyelids. Those eyelids looked so violent and menacing. It looked like his back was sleeping right now, awaiting it to be awakened. This was made the acid Quirk user scared and wanted nothing more than to hug her boyfriend's chest, so she did not have to see his back. Making up her mind, Mina took steps towards Izuku with her hair shadowing her eyes. Before long, she was only 20 inches away from her boyfriend. Izuku heard some soft footsteps coming from behind him and looked behind him to find Mina behind him. As the boy turned around, he noticed that she was looking down and wanted to comfort her if anything was troubling her at the moment. Mina, what's wrong? Silence was what Izuku received, and this made him turn his whole front side to face his girlfriend as he got a bit closer to her, raising his right hand a bit to her face to place his palm on her left cheek. He slightly rose her face to make eye contact to see a teary-eyed lover, which surprised him. The young couple had looked each other in the eyes, but nothing came from their mouths. This went on for a couple of minutes as the whole watched them, anticipating their next exchange of words. Why are you crying? Izuku broke the silence with a concerned look on his face as he put his other hand on her cheek, wiping the tears off her face. Mina struggled to find the words to express what she felt and needed to say about the whole structure of his backside, because she was downright terrified. Mina, it's okay, take your time and calm down, okay? The lad trying to help comfort his lass. I tease your back, Izuku. She whimpered into his chest like she had seen her worst nightmare. My back, Izuku thought. After a couple minutes of comforting the pink lass, Izuku grabbed his jacket without turning his back towards Mina. While putting his jacket on, still leaving it open for those to see his abs, but he did not care about that. Only thing that matters right at the moment was Mina's sudden experience and doing his best to help her get sorted out with what was on his back. After lunch, Mina had decided it would be better to talk about the matter during 6th period. Izuku made his to his next classes. Meanwhile, a certain sandy blonde was causing explosions around her personal bubble while clenching her teeth with such anger and jealousy. Hey girls, Katsuki asked aloud. Yes, Katsuki. Momo spoke up, and rest just drew their attention to the explosive girl. I have a favor if you're willing to hear me out. 2 hours later. It was now 6th period and Izuku was presently sitting down near the fence of the roof waiting for Mina. Since he had a couple minutes to himself, he decided to think back to when Mina said something about his back. I wonder what was it that scared her. The only thing he had on his body were defined muscles and scars from his training over the years. Creak. The rooftop door had opened, revealing a pink girl that softly closed the door, then made her way to the boy. Izuku looked up Mina with a frown as he gestured her to sit down next to him by the fence. After getting settled on seat position, the young couple had started to talk. Mina, what happened during lunch? You were breaking down from the way I saw it. Izuku asked with concern. It took a couple of minutes before his girlfriend can talk to him. Just that I saw something while you were shirtless. Mina's response continued with the silence that came from Izuku. On your back, there was something that your muscles made. This confused the boy. About how can his back be able to do something like that? Your shoulder blades. They had eyelids for muscles. It looked like a monster or beast sleeping. Izuku. I'm not sure if that means something, but it was scary to look at, and that's why I broke down in front of you. Mina looked towards the green-haired boy with such uncertainty and confusion that it made the boy think for a second about his eyes on his back. Then it hit him. Demon. The boy said in realization that what Mina was talking about is the demon face that only his father possessed when he was training or fighting individuals as Izuku watched all those years ago. The boy did not know much about the whole back, but when he asked his father about it, he would always say it's a demon that only we possess in our bodies when we experience the danger or thrill of a fight. Demon? Mina said, unsure of what Izuku meant. Yeah, it's something that my dad had and mentioned about a long time ago, before he passed away. He said it's a demon that only me and him possess in our bodies when we experience the danger or thrill of a fight. I think when me and Kirishima were playing rock, paper, scissors, I got into the game a bit too much with a bet me and him made if either one of us lost. Mina had her mouth slightly open, then a thought came to her head. What was the bet? It was that the loser had to take off his shirt. Kirishima wanted to know if I was packing a muscle since I fought Yurariko a while ago. Izuku explained, followed by a sign from Mina. You know, I did not think you would embrace nudism. Izuku. This made the boy blush a bit. I did not mean to lose, okay? And sure, I agreed to that bet, but did not think much of it at the time since we were outside. By the way, your dad seems to be very vague on the demon thing. Did he had one before, you know? Mina asked Izuku. Back then, he had the whole face from what I can remember, but even when he was relaxed, the eyes and mouth would still be there. The lad said, recalling the time where his younger self was sitting with his dad on the grass after one of those fights he would do every week. Baki was shirtless at the time as Izuku looked at his back. The demon on his father's backside was amazing to look at because it was always so surreal with how it looked back at him. It was beast of magnificence with brutally feeling, but a tranquil presence emitted from the structure. As if a monster that is calm and sincere, but only dangerous and violent when it needs to be. You can get this to one day, Izuku. Baki said to the boy. What do you mean, Dad? Asked the confused child. I mean, is that if you follow the path of a grappler, then without a doubt in my mind you will attain the demon. The boy smiled with excitement and quickly asked, you think I can get it, Dad? Baki smiles softly at his son's joy, followed by a I know so. But that is up to you entirely, my son. Snap asterisk the sound of fingers snapping brought Izuku back from his thoughts as he realized those were pink fingers. Hey, you alright, Izuku? You went silent on me for a few minutes. Mina, who was now sitting in front of him looking at his eyes. Oh, sorry about that, I was lost in thought, Mina. Izuku apologized with realization that he was near Mina's face. Without a second thought, Izuku leaned in and softly kissed his girlfriend, leaving Mina surprised. The kiss only about 10 seconds as the boy leaned back to see the blush on the girl's face. What was that for? Said the pink lass with a smile on her face. I love you, and I am sorry I scared you with something I have to bear, but I want you to know that it's a part of me, and I hope it does not change anything we have. Izuku said with the apologetic smile. In return, he got a kiss from the pink lass. After they broke the kiss, she said this to the boy. Izuku, I was scared because I did not know what's happening to you since you don't have a quirk, did not know what to expect. But now that you explained to me a bit about your genetics, I understand now. I love you even if that demon of yours grows into something more. Mina said with a soft smile on her face as she rested her body on the boy's with her upper body on his chest. Izuku wraps Mina around into a warm embrace as the boy lays against the fence. Let's stay like this for a while, okay? Mina whispered. Sure, Mina. 1 hour later. It was the end of school when Izuku and Mina were walking out together hand in hand. Both seemed happy on the way towards the school gates until Izuku felt something. Without a second thought, the green-haired boy picked the pink girl off her feet and ducked into a crouch position as object flew above the boy's head. As Mina yelled in surprise from the sudden action, but quickly caught herself. What laid in front of the couple was a morning star. The metal with spikes around the sphere had left a crater of the ball's size on the asphalt. Izuku quickly looked behind him to find 5 girls staring back at him with wide grins. What do you want? Izuku said aloud for all the girls. The brown bob-haired girl spoke up, Paypack. Izuku put Mina on her 2 feet, but without looking away from their attackers. If you want me, then get, but let not get anyone else involved. Mina heard this and decided to still hold on to him, telling with body language that, I am not leaving you. Mina, listen, you need to go now. Izuku implored his girlfriend, but what he got was a no. I am not leaving you. Before Izuku can respond, a blade came right for the pink girl. Izuku caught the blade before it hit Mina's chest and had a glare look on his face. Stay out of this, Pinky. This is between me and your quirkless son of a bitch of boyfriend, got it? So stay out of our business. Uraraka demanded. Mina looked at Izuku's right hand, the one he caught the blade with. It's bleeding since he caught it at the point of the blade. Izuku, I am Mina was caught off. Mina, I'm okay, but just go to the side, okay, and wait or head home, and I will see you there. Izuku pleaded with his lover. Mina did not like this at all, but she knew that escaping was not one of the options, but she was sure that she would get in the way if Izuku was going to fight them. Let's get him, Uraraka said loud and clear. Izuku prepared himself for the attacks. Momo was the first to get to the boy. She had created a katana and attempted to slice Izuku by the shoulder, but he moved to the side and performed Shugen on the creation girl's wrist. Before Izuku made contact with Momo, a long tongue grabbed his left foot and felt being pulled towards Azui. All of that force caused the boy to being in the air and heading towards the frog girl. As he was nearing the girl, Izuku got his right foot ready for an axe kick towards the frog's cheek, which it did connect, causing the frog girl to cry in pain and loosen her tongue's grip on the boy. Izuku finally got his balance and did a front flip followed a heel kick on the frog girl's neck, resulting in slamming her face in the ground, shutting her shouts entirely. Bastard! Uraraka and Momo yelled. Izuku felt a change in atmosphere and feeling of force upon him. He knew what was coming, so countering the gravity, the boy did a backflip away from the frog girl and backleap away some more, just to make sure he does not get caught into the gravity change. When Izuku looked up, Momo had a fucking dragon slayer medieval sword over her head ready to hack his shoulder. Through instinct, the green-haired boy kicked the Momo in the face by using his hands to push of the ground. Momo had fallen to the ground, covering her nose since it was bleeding. Izuku took the opportunity to punch the fallen girl in the throat, the temporary make breathing hard for her. Jiro came from behind Izuku, attempting to burst his eardrums by extending her ear aux cords towards his ears. Izuku grabbed Jiro by reaching his arm behind his back and grabbed her uniform and throw her towards the ground. Jiro was holding on to her back since her backside took all of the force. Izuku was there crouching before her and grabbed her aux cords and started twisting them. Screaming and crying can be heard from Jiro as her earlobes started to bleed a lot, and the skin that attached her ears to her head was tearing because of the tension created by Izuku's pulling. And to finally silence her, Izuku brought his leg up all the way when his leg was near his chest and brought his foot down with speed and power, smashing the girl's nose, breaking it in the process. Izuku turned his head to look at Uraraka and Katsuki, the only two he had not fought yet. He was downright fucking done with the shit he had to go through over the years. He had his eyes on Uraraka, who was visibly terrified, and he did not care anymore if he was asked to give mercy, because he was fresh out of mercy and forgiveness. Izuku was now in front of Uraraka and is planning one technique for this bitch that he had just created. The boy cocked his right fist back, and it was underneath his shoulders, and spread his legs apart into his stance, preparing his attack. As Izuku took step in, it was too late for the gravity girl to react, because the boy's fist was in front of her face, and only heard one thing before the lights went out: full force death punch. Blood. 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 That was all Izuku saw. It was not Uraraka's. It was his. On the Izuku right hand, it was a bloody mess, and there was even a point where his white bone knuckles were showing. But Izuku did not feel pain, nor did he feel adrenaline. No, he felt a pleasure sensation in his body, and it made him want to fight even more. Katsuki was only a few meters away from Izuku. She had so much terror in her eyes from the sight Izuku was in. His whole right sleeve was gone from his forearm to his shoulder. It was blown off by his punch. And his menacing grin, it was there. But then he had a frown on his face. Izuku looked at his hand and sighed. "I did not do right," was what Katsuki heard before boy looked at her. How can this be? In the span of 5 minutes, Izuku had taken everyone excluding her out, and he had one injury that came from his own attack. How? The boy responded. Now the boy was inches away from the explosive girl, looking dead in the eyes. "You should have left me be, Kachin, otherwise this would have not happened. You even attempted to hurt Mina." Mina. Mina? Mina. It's always about that pink bitch. Katsuki shouted at Izuku in the face. "Well, fine, I guess I will have to take her out, so I can you all to myself." What an explosion appeared in front of the boy, causing him to flinch, and after a few moments the smoke dissolved rather quickly. Katsuki was not there. Izuku looked back to find Mina fighting Katsuki. Mina was doing her best not to get hit by the explosions or using her acid on Katsuki prevent her from activating her quirk, but to no avail. Mina was overpowered, was on the ground with her attacker standing over her. "This is it, Mina, you lose." As Bakugos said that, her right hand to her forearm started to glow and immensely yellow as a sound can be emitted from her limb. As Katsuki open palm was heading towards Mina, that last thing the both saw before the blast was a hint of green. Smoke was everywhere. It was hard to see and breathe, but after about 3 minutes both girls saw one thing. Izuku covering Mina from the blast entirely. "Izuku?" Mina breathed out. "Oh no," Katsuki whimpered. Izuku had his back towards Mina and was facing Katsuki. The blast blew off the boy's upper piece of the uniform as well as the skin on his abdomen. Exposed muscle and tissues were noticeable on Izuku's abs, and now he still had it in him to fight. Mina heard a thud and oof before Katsuki fell to the ground unconscious. She looked at Izuku, who had turned his body to her. "Are you hurt, Mina?" he asked softly. No, I am not, but Izuku." "No." Mina was crying at the sight of her boyfriend had lost consciousness while standing up with a severe wound on his abdomen. But before Izuku went night-night, he said one thing, I'm glad you weren't harmed, Mina. Mina quickly brought Izuku down into her embrace. He couldn't return at the moment, and crying onto his back with sadness and pain. Her hands holding onto his abdomen, getting his blood on her palms, but she did not care not one bit. All she wanted was Izuku tone relief of this mess of a life, and be allowed to be happy. Deku, you are a fool. An unknown voice said aloud that silenced the pink girl's cry. Mina turned to look behind her to find a sandy blonde boy the same age as her looking down at the unconscious boy. Kabuki, is that you? Mina spoke up with a sniffle. Hey there, Pinky, how you doing?